That's the one I am familiar. I've done Independence Pass, and so I thought it was about the worst in Colorado, but it sounds like
Oh.
this is a little bit more terrifying than Independence.
Yes, much more so.
Yes, it is. And we went on the Mustang, and that Mustang driver had nerves of steel. He did a great job. It was great. I look forward to the time we can do another road trip. We've done, on the time that I've been here, we've done 3 or 4, and there's nothing like getting out there and seeing the roads and meeting all of the CDOT people who keep this state open and running, and to talk to the local officials about, for the most part, how grateful they are that money gets spent on the projects that they need done. So looks like we're right at 12:02. I'm looking to see, Herman, do you see, are we all on here?
The only person I don't see is Commissioner Tebow, and he was on the phone a few minutes.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah,
There
we
he
have
is,
all
yep.
we have all 11 then.
That's great. And we'd like to start the meeting by welcoming Lisa Hickey, who is up here on the what do we call this? The Brady Bunch screen, just to the other side of Eula and between Eula and Sydney. So thanks for joining us, and we'll officially welcome you when we start our official meeting this afternoon. Looks like we have not too bad an agenda today, and I appreciate Jennifer and Herman working hard to keep this into one day, so we have the luxury of having a day off tomorrow, as all of us are trying to get our holiday activities finished up, and shopping and whatever else we're going to do. And I guess no one's really traveling this year, or if you are, you shouldn't tell anybody because you'll be on the front page of the paper. So poor Mayor Hancock got that handed to him when he left at Thanksgiving. So anyway, thank you for coming, everyone. Let's get started. The first agenda item is the right-of-way condemnation authorization, and I'm going to turn that over to Chief Engineer Steve Harrelson, please.
I'm here. I'm just struggling with getting my video and my mute undone. Thank you, Chair. This action is in your packets, and it is pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 43-1-208. On July 18th, 2019, the Commission entered Resolution TC 190703 upon its minutes, which determined that the I-25 express lanes from State Highway 7 to State Highway 1 would serve the public interest and or convenience of the traveling public. The resolution also authorized CDOT to engage in negotiations with the landowner. The project I-25 express lanes is necessary for widening and improving I-25, including the addition of a northbound and southbound express lane and reconstructing the State Highway 56 and State Highway 60 interchanges. This will improve safety and improve connectivity for the community and is therefore desirable. The property that we need is a temporary easement, a permanent easement, and one fee simple acquisition previously approved for negotiation. The property owner was informed of the Transportation Commission meeting on December 16th, 2020 through a letter sent to the owner and the owner's attorney on November 24th. The address of the property is Lot 1, Block 1, I-25 Gateway Center, Filing 4, Town of Johnstown. The landowner's name is BKNNN Properties LLC. There is an existing 20-foot platted easement within the fee acquisition dedicated to the public. There is an existing Poudre Valley REA distribution line within the platted easement. The total size of the property is 1.613 acres. The proposed size of the acquisition is the fee portion is 10,499 square feet or 0.24 acres. The permanent easement is 0.135 acres and the temporary easement is 0.081 acres. The purpose of the necessary parcels are improvements needed to reconstruct the State Highway 60 interchange, including construction of a sidewalk and a retaining wall. There are no improvements within the fee simple within this parcel. The permanent easement for permanent placement, construction, use, and maintenance of roadway improvements and all related activities and associated appurtenances, and a temporary construction easement associated with roadway reconstruction, including but not limited to stockpiling materials, including topsoil, embankment, riprap, rebar, and lumber, temporary parking for vehicles and equipment, and temporary construction access, including haul roads. And there are no improvements within that parcel. The estimated property value is $131,100, and this was based on an appraisal prepared by John Vaughn, dated June 30th, 2020. The date of the initial offer was August 19th, and the summary of the counter offers, we've not received a counter offer. The landowner is unhappy with the impacts to the property and has asked CDOT to reconsider their design to minimize impacts. CDOT reviewed alternative design options, including extending the wall. However, there is not a significant reduction to impact the property, and the increased cost to extend the wall versus the proposed design is not financially feasible. The landowner has not proposed a counteroffer. CDOT delivered a last written offer. The landowner has indicated they will not respond to the last written offer until this condemnation is filed. The Poudre Valley REA distribution line will be relocated to the permanent easement. Relocation costs will be addressed via standard utility agreement. CDOT will enter into a common use agreement allowing Poudre Valley REA to jointly occupy the permanent easement. CDOT has determined that the condemnation of the properties is in the public interest as they are needed for the project listed in your packet. Are there any questions or concerns from the commission? All right.
Should we ask if there's anyone here from the public who wishes to speak?
Well, I think we need to go through the PowerPoint that shows the visuals first.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
So Jen, if you could. So there's the location of the property. It's at the Highway 60 interchange up in Weld County. It's on the westerly side of the interstate. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of what we've got. There's an existing subdivision. However, this subject parcel has no improvements upon it right now. We've got the parcel marked AP right of or RW 611 is the parcel that we're going to be taking in fee. Then APPE 611 is the permanent easement, and APTE 611 is the temporary easement. So those are the offers, 131,000. Despite ongoing contact, the owner has not provided a counter offer. So now you can ask if there are people to speak.
Perfect. And I didn't hear from Jennifer. There was anyone. Is there anyone, Jennifer, in the on the Zoom that wishes to speak to this condemnation?
Could I make a comment?
Sure, Commissioner Stanton.
Thanks, Chair Stewart. Two things. Steve, you mentioned that there is just a temporary easement. Can you say how long your temporary use of that would be for?
It's for construction activities. So during construction, we build our permanent improvements right up to the edge of the permanent easement, but there might be necessary to reseed that site and just improve it, track on it.
Thank you. And the other thing is, this may not be a real good comment, but it's the holiday season and we're condemning somebody's property. I realize that they have had a chance over 30 days to extend it, but just a comment. Over.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanton. Jennifer says that she has not been contacted. And as we go through this condemnation process, we will be taking a vote on approval of this later in today's agenda. Once the condemnation process goes underway, there still is an opportunity for discussion between the property owner and CDOT.
Correct.
I see Kathy Young shaking her head, yes, so.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, I hear you loud and clear, Commissioner Stanton. This will not get filed until January, and we would hope to still do some type of negotiation before we actually have to file it. But as you know, we cannot file it until we have permission from the commission.
Thanks, Kathy and Chair and the engineer. That really helps. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
If I can
Thank
just
you.
jump in, unless I missed it, Kathy is our AG's our representative on the Attorney General's office for our new commissioner's sake. And then when staff are getting ready to present, that's okay. When I should have said this at the beginning, when staff are getting ready to present, just remind everybody who you are and introduction for our new commissioner. Thanks.
That's great direction, Herman. I should have done that as well, or at least one of us should. Thank you. Chief Engineer, is that all you have on this one?
That's all I have on this one, and that's the only one we have this month.
Thank you. So we will take action on this later once we go into our formal meeting later this afternoon. The next on the agenda is the State of the Plan Progress Report on implementing the 10-year plan and the SB 267 stimulus update, and that's Becca and Jeff and Marissa, I believe.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commission, and welcome, Commissioner Hickey. I look forward to working with you. My name is Rebecca White. I'm the director of a division we call here the Division of Transportation Development, which includes a number of fantastic things within the department, including planning, NEPA, some information and modeling work. You'll hear about scenic byways. So actually, you'll get a good preview today of some of the work we do within DTD. Just to start off here, I'm going to ask for some help from Marissa, Jeff Sudemeyer, as well as Matt Inzio, because this update actually has many parts to it and many bits of good news that we want to share with the Commission. And I'll just say, in the end of a really brutal year, it brought a smile to my face to work on this presentation, because we really are in such a good place within this narrow area of delivering our plan and following through on our promises. And it just, I hope you'll enjoy this as much as I did, because I think we have a good story here to tell. This briefing also reflects a discussion that we had when you all adopted the plan back in August. And I'd asked for some input on how we keep this document relevant, how we make it something that's referred to and used, and got a lot of ideas there. And one of the concepts we came up with is, well, what if we sort of do a state of the plan, much like a state of the state or a state of the union. And we talked about various milestones to do that with. And so we thought this might be a good place to start as we end this year, to kind of look back on what all we've accomplished. And I think as we move forward, we'd like to bring to you updates on the state of the plan, whether that be a kind of a half-year mark or annually. And then you'll see today we're using a lot of tools so that we can also share publicly the progress we're making and make sure that the folks who care about this work can follow along with what we're building and how we're doing it. So with that, I am happy to introduce Marissa Gahan, our newly selected head of our branch overseeing planning. Really excited to have her in this role, and she's going to bring incredible talent and energy to this. She will talk for a while about what we've accomplished with the plan. Then Jeff Sudemeyer and I will touch a bit on the new resources we're hoping to receive in the coming year. And we'll revisit where we left off when we were looking at prospective add backs in the summer timeframe when we were sort of reeling from the budget impacts. So Marissa, why don't I have you pick it up here at this slide?
All right, thanks, Rebecca. Just make sure you can everyone hear me? Awesome, okay. So really happy to be able to share this first state of the plan update with you and share some exciting new things that have happened since you adopted the plan back in the spring. So as a refresher, our 10-year plan includes over 100 shovel-ready projects, over 1,000 lane miles touched. Transit is very much integrated into the 10-year plan. We have 15 rehabbed or new transit facilities as a part of the plan. It also represents the largest investment in rural road condition in CDOT's history, and it has a focus on taking care of our system with over 50% of funds going to improving the condition of our roadway system. So this being our asset management and resurfacing projects. Next slide. So wanted to share some new tools that we have created to describe the plan. So first, we've updated the vision document, the themes of the plan, the projects where they are in years 1 through 4 and 5 through 10. We've updated those to note, to be highlighted with an asterisk that now shows projects that have been completed or are in construction. So you can keep track of this as a living document and as it goes forward. We've also developed fact sheets for every single project in the 10-year pipeline, strategic pipeline of projects. So we feature those fact sheets in this new online story map that I'll be sharing with you in my next slides. We're also putting a place on our website where you'll see some periodic report cards. For example, we have a report card now for our rural roads that I think Matt Enzio will be talking to you about in the middle of this presentation as we celebrate things like that and other major milestones of the plan. Lastly, but very importantly, we link this to our accountability and transparency tracking. So this shows in real time as projects move from this planning idea phase and become delivered. So that accountability piece as we track projects from cradle to grave. Next slide. So this is the interactive story map that we just launched actually today on the website. It's an interactive tool through the ArcGIS mapping system. It allows users to explore projects in the areas of the state they care about. Obviously, I can't show you how interactive it is on a static PowerPoint presentation, but I do encourage you to take a look at this. Basically, on the website, you'll be able to scroll down and you'll see each region of the state, and you can zoom in on that region and look at projects that you care about in the areas of the state. Again, it's also linked to our accountability and transparency dashboard to track those real-time project status updates. Next slide. So here's it a little bit zoomed in. So as you would scroll down, you can see all the projects there with the little pins. They're organized by regions of the state. So we have a content that shows all the rural road projects and then all of the highway and transit projects based on area of the state. So you'll see like central projects, southeast project, northwest projects, etc. And you can zoom in and out really easily on this website. Next slide. So once you are zoomed in, you can click on the various projects. So this is an example of the I-25 South Gap project, and it gives you an overview of that project and the cost and funding. And that very last item there, you'll see it says click to view the full project fact sheet. If you click on that, next slide, it will take you to a fact sheet of that project that talks about, more specifics of the project. It also talks about, what we heard about the project during the public review, if we have that, and benefits of the project. And again, those are on that website link there. Next slide. And it is also mobile and tablet friendly, just as a glimpse of what it would look like if you were looking at this on your cell phone. So wanted to share that it has that functionality as well. So I think this is a really exciting new tool as we gear up for the legislative session in terms of educating the general public, and again, showing that accountability as we spend our legislative funds going forward. Next slide. So now I wanted to share with you some accomplishments to date since we adopted the plan back in the spring. So before I share those accomplishments, just a little recap of the dollars we've received to date. So in years 1 and 2, we've received $984 million of Senate Bill 267, $325 million in Senate Bill 1 funds, and then $105 million in Transportation Commission funds to highway and transit projects. Next slide. So we're putting those dollars to work. So highway project status. So we have about 90 highway projects with Senate bill funding identified in years 1 through 4 of the 10-year plan. And of those projects, 15 are now complete. 4 of those projects are partially complete. And we have 40 projects approved to go to add. Of the transit projects, years 1 and 2, 4 projects are complete or are in construction, and we have 5 projects currently in design. Next slide. Here I want to talk a little bit about how we're achieving certain plan goals. So the first thing, fixing rural roads. I don't know if Matt Enzio is on the line, just to talk about this slide and the next slide.
Yeah, I'm right here, Marissa.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Sure. So, sorry, I'm getting a funny feedback, but I'll keep going. I'll quickly call back as the plan was being developed, and Director Liu was calling attention to this issue, and as the specific rural paving program was approved, also discussed the need for the department to generally give more attention to this issue, and consistent with that. Something that we've put together is a grand total roll-up of all of the rural work that the department did on the state system. I think that this slide speaks to the immediate work that's happening with the specific rural paving program in year 1, and then we would like to give you a brief sneak preview of what will be our first report card, and if we're able to maintain this, hopefully our first annual report card on rural roads. Jennifer, if you can hit the next slide. Again, this is to try and give a grand total type sense of the work that has been accomplished, both with the first year of the rural paving program, but also what we've been able to do as a department with other funding sources, including with our maintenance crews working in each of those sections, but to give something of a grand total snapshot of the attention and we've given in the work we've done. Hopefully in the next couple of days, you'll be able to see that first report card go out. And that's all for me, at least at this point, Marissa. Thanks.
Thank you for that update. If you want to go to the next slide. So the next plan goal area is fix the basics. So wanted to feature a couple example projects that have hit major milestones in terms of achieving this plan goal. So for example, our US 287 bridge preventative maintenance is under construction. We have the Harlan Bridge replacement that project is currently being scoped. And State Highway 13 Fortification Creek safety and condition upgrades. That project is in advertisement. Next slide. So this slide shows focused expansion on key strategic corridors, that goal area of the plan. So we have a few projects highlighted here that are achieving this goal. So I-25 North segment 7 and 8 is under construction. The South Gap Package 3, sorry, that slide got a little cut off, is currently under construction. A couple projects on I-70 West, one Floyd Hill is being scoped. The EA and funded package are underway. The Westvale Pass safety improvements. This is an exciting project in terms of receiving a really large federal grant for this project that was made possible with the Senate Bill 267 match. So that project's currently being scoped. And down in the southwest area of the state, we have the US 550-160 connection, which is currently under construction. Next slide. Here, I don't know if David Kretzinger is on the line, but the next two slides talk about the plan goal area of integrating transit into key corridors. This first slide is on mobility hubs, and the next slide talks about other transit facilities. David, are you on?
Yes, Marissa, I'm on.
Awesome.
I think
Do
this
you want to
slide,
talk about these? Yeah.
sure. I think this slide sort of says it all. We've got a governor's goal to increase our mobility. We've got 18 hubs, mobility hubs or park and rides that exist in some form today, and we need to get 3 new ones online. The Centera Loveland one on the top is a replacement. As some of your earlier slides stated, we've got some refurbishments or replacements of some. And so from the remaining list of 4, and there's actually a 5th one, Castle Rock, being considered under site selection, we just need to get 3 out of 5 online by 2023. Next slide. And then these are facility improvements that are needed around the region to support transit operations. The facility improvements protect assets, i.e. vehicles, that would otherwise be stored outside. And in many cases, these facility improvements are also correspond to our electric bus goals to reach by 2030. So starting to see transit agencies making those investments to switch over from diesel buses to electric buses. That's all I have for those 2 slides. If there's any questions, otherwise I'll turn it back to you, Marissa.
David?
Yes.
Let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to also feature some other notable accomplishments that we've made in terms of the plan. So this slide talks about improving safety along urban arterials. So this talks about the Safer Main Street Grants program that was developed to support infrastructure projects that improve safety and accessibility along our urban arterials. So we have 30 projects now being recommended, and a high percentage of those projects are near existing transit, with 65% on or along state highways. So wanted to share that with you. Next slide. Another notable accomplishment that I wanted to highlight is wildlife crossings. So we have several projects with wildlife components that are now under construction. Those are listed here, they include the I-25 South Gap, the US 550-160, and then US 24 wildlife fencing. So that's another notable accomplishment. Next slide. So here I'll turn it back over to Rebecca to talk about where we're headed next and some future funding on the horizon.
All right, thanks so much, Marissa. There, I think thanks, that resolved the feedback. Okay, so let's transition then to some good news ahead on some likely additional funding that will allow us to continue to implement the plan, and really looking at 2 possibilities here, and I'll ask Jeff Sudemeyer to chime in where needed. But the first is the recent proposal from the governor to help support the economy and build back stronger. And if you could go to the next slide. Transportation is a big part of the governor's proposal. And if you'll see there, that number circled in red, we talked about this a bit at commission last month, but we are a key feature of building back stronger from COVID. And of that 220 million, about 200 million would be for transportation. And I'll break that down for you on the next slide. But the real focus here is on re-stimulating the economy and kind of getting us back on solid footing after this terrible year. And if you go to the next slide. So that 200 million in the governor's proposal is divided into two categories. You've got 130 million, that large chunk there, really focused on fixing our infrastructure, pulling projects from our 10-year plan, and a particular emphasis on continuing our investment in rural roads, particularly on our tourism corridors and scenic byways, because that really helps us get at that economic hook. Continuing work on wildlife mitigations, and you've already heard a lot about what we've been able to do so far. We took a look sort of holistically at the plan and found just so many projects that have wildlife features with them. And in fact, we're able to talk with our partners at the Department of Natural Resources about this recently, and they were pretty blown away and had no idea that we were out there making so many improvements. But a lot more work to do on that. The other two areas sort of singled out are repairing some of our critical bridges along I-70 in the metro area. We have nearly, I think, 4 dozen bridges that are in various stages of decline. Big costs there, but we can continue to sort of tackle those. Right now, the I-70 Harlan Bridge is one of the projects you all have moved over for Senate Bill 267, and that is one of the bridges along this set. But there are many more out there. And then starting to focus on fixing the Eisenhower Johnson Memorial Tunnel. We have probably a dozen repairs that are needed up there, so a real ability to scale up or down just based on the amount of money. So those are just 4 of the focus areas within that 130 million, and each of those is listed in some form on our 10-year plan. Like, great. And then the other 70 million points to 2 existing grant programs we have. One is the Revitalizing Main Streets, which has just been an enormous success. This has got a small amount of money now, I believe only about $5 million, but already has, I think it's about 50 different projects across the state that are helping communities adjust to COVID and the way people sort of travel and interact with businesses, so they can move into the main street, allow people to eat outdoors. They can space out some trails so that folks, when they're out and about, can have that 6 foot of space. We've even seen some projects on university campuses so that they're letting the students traverse the campus more spaced out. So that program is one that could see more funding if the stimulus dollars go through. The other program is Safer Main Streets, and this would take the concept that we have now just for the Denver metro area. And you have a briefing, I believe, in your packet on the 30 projects we hope to announce very soon from that. But it would take the same idea and move it statewide, so out of the metro area, which is just a fantastic response to some really disturbing trends we're seeing in the uptick in pedestrian and bicycle fatalities in particular. So that is what is in the stimulus proposal. Again, the legislature hasn't quite convened yet. We are tracking this very closely and we'll be ready should it move forward. I think we've got ideas at our fingertips and could deliver projects very quickly that would help the economy, but nothing more to report on this right now. Then the next set of dollars, if you could move to the next slide, is the 3rd tranche of Senate Bill 267. So Jeff, I'll ask you to maybe join me here and cover the content, at least on these first 2 bullets, on kind of what you're hearing about the likelihood of the 3rd issuance.
Yeah, so not a whole lot to add other than I can update you a little bit. We We are in pretty regular communication with the Treasurer's Office. In fact, Director Liu and I had a meeting with Treasurer Dave Young, I believe just last Friday. The Treasurer's Office is working hard in tandem with the Attorney General's Office on putting together all of the collateral that is required in order for us to issue. We've the plan throughout the last several months has been to target a spring issuance. That is still where we're tracking. The Treasurer's Office has indicated that they're planning on an April timeline. So we'll continue to work with them over the next few months, but preparations are well underway, targeting an April issuance.
So we are in, thank you, Jeff, in a pretty good place for these dollars as well. So if you'll recall back in July when we were sort of dealing with huge uncertainties and different scenarios coming out of the budget cuts and COVID, we had talked through with Commission a scenario we were calling prospective add-backs. And it was based around, okay, if we received another amount of dollars, 500 million is what we focused on because that represented a third year Senate Bill 267, or at the time we were even hoping there might be some more federal stimulus dollars. So we walked through a set of projects that would cover 4 regions of the state. And I'm sure the Commission will recall the reason we focused on just these 4 regions was to get us back to equity with the original sort of percentage allocations that we identified at the very beginning of this process that spread that full 4 years of Senate Bill 267 across the state. And with that first set of projects that went out the door and the add backs, that left regions 1, 2, 3, and 5, quote unquote, out of equity. But with another tranche of 500 million, we returned to that kind of stable point. So the slides that come here next, Jennifer, if you could move forward. These are just to remind the Commission kind of where we left off, and this will be the starting point of where we'll pick back up. So DTD plans to work with each of the regions in the coming few weeks into early next year to revisit these project ideas, confirm that they're still the priorities for the regions, allow some time for us to also talk with our planning stakeholders and have that same check back in. And then, of course, bring this to you all. And with an April issuance, we've got a good couple months to work through that process. So I'll be looking to come back to the Commission with a firm staff proposal here sort of late winter. But again, just as a reminder, if you can go to the next slide, I think it's region 3 or 2, so about 146 million. And again, these dollar amounts were based on returning us to regional equity. And then the last slide is region 3. You've got the last, yeah. Okay, then the next bit here is I'll ask David Krutzinger, if you could go to the next slide, Jennifer, to join back on just to talk about where we are with the future of allocating transit dollars from 267.
Thanks, Rebecca. We've been working with the approved list since December 19, made some updates throughout this year with Commission approval. And some of those updates included pursuing some competitive grants, a few of those which came true, a few which did not. And then we've had some other small project changes. So we expect going forward that we will have discussions with you on both year $3 and then some of the reallocation for year 2 money at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, if you just go to that last slide. So looking forward, like I just said earlier, we'll go back and look at our $500 million list from the summer. We also will continue to be ready and on our toes for the stimulus dollars and any sort of transitions and legislator focus during that process. So we're very sensitive to how that comes out. We'll continue to work together with the transit office to have a plan forward for transit as well. And then just to return us to the theme from the beginning, I'm really focused on continuing to show and celebrate the progress. I'm so glad you got to see the rural report card today, a little bit of a glimpse of it anyhow. But I think continuing to tell our story needs to be just as important. So I think we're in a great place now, and I'm happy to entertain questions, Chair, or however you want to move forward.
Well, thank you very much for that report. I'm sure we'll have a number of comments or questions. Commissioner Brackey has her name in the queue. I'd like to first ask if I might make a comment about the Safer Main Streets. And Rebecca did mention that we have a report at the end of our packet that talks about Safer Main Streets. And several of us were on the Regional Transportation Committee call yesterday when those allocations were announced and approved, and it was an approval of 30 projects that totaled $58 million. That doesn't take up all the money that was in there. There it is. And it did pass approval. One of the comments that was made by the vice chair of DRCOG was that she was disappointed that all the money wasn't used. And I just wanted to be sure that anyone on that call remembers that the process now is for any of those applications that weren't approved to be able to work with CDOT and DRCOG staff in order to tweak them or fine tune them so that they fit the criteria better, with the hope that those will be out and available in February, not a new call for projects. One of the issues I think that I have a little bit of concern about, and that is that all of these agreements require an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, that sometimes takes a while for CDOT to process. And 30 IGAs over the Christmas holiday or the holiday time, the New Year's holiday, could be quite a heavy lift. And I'm just hoping that in fact, we have staff and capability of getting those IGAs out the door, with the anticipation that we'll have another group of them in February. And I know that that was a concern of the vice chair of DRCOG. After talking to Rebecca, I felt comfortable that we in fact will do that and can do that. But just wanted to say that for those of you who were on that call yesterday about the Safer Main Streets program. And now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Brackey, followed by Commissioner Stanton.
Thank you so much, Chair Stewart, and to Rebecca and Melissa and the team for your fantastic work on this. A really great presentation, and love the work that you're doing to keep the statewide plan alive and really be able to demonstrate the progress and the work that's going on. And I've been already looking around the interactive map online. It's really cool to be able to see that and to see the projects. And again, I think it's an excellent tool for us as well as for all of our stakeholders, and to be able to share this with our different groups will be fantastic. So thank you for doing that. I guess a question that I have, and again, maybe it's for upcoming conversations, but just wondering about with this, for example, the potential state stimulus funding, are there opportunities to consider projects that would further advance these goals? And an example could be mobility hubs along North I-25. As David mentioned, there's still 3 more to go to finish our list by 2023. So I'm just curious if there'll be conversations around the potential, how could other projects be considered that are in that sort of shovel-ready category? And maybe it's not for the state stimulus funding, but it could be for other future sources. But I really appreciate how the information you're sharing with us helps to create the ability for us to weigh in and say, how are we aligning our investment choices with our plan and our targets that are in the plan, and so that we're making sure we're advancing on a pace to meet those timeframes. So I guess I just have questions around how and when will we be able to have those conversations, whether it's state stimulus money or new federal money. But I really want to be able to continue pulling from the plan. Like you've said in the past, this is our North Star. And so we want to be able to use it for that. So curious, like how and when we're going to have those conversations, and then how are the projects that have been identified to date for the stimulus, are they connected to the first years of our 10-year pipeline of projects, or are they in the later years? And there's the whole list that we have, and then it was helpful to see how the list was broken out by like years 1 through 4 and then 5 through 10. So I just have questions around how are we aligning our investment conversations with this information.
Okay, I see that our chief engineer wanted to help respond. Steve, I'll let you go first and I can add some thoughts.
Okay, in terms of the stimulus, we've, ever since the COVID started and there's been talk about stimulus, we've all been thinking about which projects on the list could be delivered, timely. One of the challenges is we never know what the call for projects is going to ask for. So I think all of the, the project staff in all the regions have been looking at that list and thinking, what can I get out quickly? Is it a bridge project? Is it a safety project, et cetera? So we've all been thinking about that. It's kind of like, Wayne Gretzky used to say, we're trying to skate to where the puck's going to be, but we don't really know where the puck's going to be until those calls for projects come out. So we're certainly thinking about it, but we got to stay light on our skates, I guess.
Okay, I mean, thanks. I get that. I mean, I understand it, and it's all about readiness and having, I guess, what I would think a portfolio of projects that are ready, depending on what comes out or what the nature of the call for projects looks like. I just think that, again, cross-checking that list back with where are we on our implementation of our 10-year plan and how are we making those choices to advance. And I did want to say that I really appreciate the stimulus package, including expanding the Safer Main Street statewide. I think that's an excellent program, and I think it's based on the list that's been created, I think it's going to make a big difference. And I think being able to do those types of projects statewide will be very advantageous for our community. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Stanton and then Commissioner Vasquez, please.
Thanks, Chair Stewart. First, Rebecca, Marissa, and Dave, that was a wonderful brief. I was especially impressed, like Commissioner Brackey brought up, I think it was slide 19, where you showed I-25 and all the mobility hubs and the effort. That was a really informative slide. And I'm wondering if you could do it east-west also at some point, especially with future plans for Piccadilly and points out east of Aurora. That's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, we can. Thank you, Commissioner. We can certainly look into really just a whole set of visuals that tell different layers of the story. And we've got just a fantastic GIS team. So that capability is at our fingertips more than it ever has been. And I'm happy to produce whatever maps you all think would be helpful. It's
That's not what I want. It's what you guys want. I just thought for the public it would be useful. Thank you.
Sure.
I agree, Commissioner Stanton. I think that's a great idea. I have Commissioner Vasquez next, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank the team for the focus on wildlife mitigation and crossing implementation, and was so pleased to hear that you had the conversation with DNR and that they in turn were surprised by the extent of the effort and actual construction by CDOT. I think this is a tough lift given the economic challenges of COVID-19 to stay focused on this, but it's clearly important to the evergreen economy of Colorado to maintain those wildlife corridors. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great comments. Any other comments before we let Rebecca go?
Madam Chair, Bill Tebow, I hope I can comment. One thing that would be helpful, I think, Rebecca, Jeff, and everyone, is that if you could sort of chart for us in general terms the initial package that we approved last November, the package of Senate Bill 1, Senate Bill 267, all the different funnel of money that we put into the over $1 billion worth of ideas, and then also chart for us how we added back relative to that package that we approved, because we couldn't continue with it because of COVID, of course. And then how you envision future add backs would then yield some kind of visual for us to see how much of the original package has been dealt with, either because it can't be done, because there have been add backs fully or partially, and because we're anticipating further add backs fully or partially, just to sort of give us a grounding of sort of, you know, where we have been and where we're going. You know, I try to keep piecing that together with all the different handouts that you give me, and it's there. It's just kind of hard to keep dog-earing a bunch of pages to keep, you know, up with the different changes. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense to you.
Absolutely.
But it's just sort of, you know, so the commission is sort of at a baseline when we start talking about it next year, understanding exactly what we approved, exactly what couldn't be done, what were added back, and what we're going to be continuing to work on with add backs if we're fortunate enough to have the funds.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense, and that's I think quite easy for us to do. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh no, and I was going to say, you know, and just a general answer, I think where we started last November was, I think, a $1.6 billion list, and that didn't include year one of 267, because at that point we'd already programmed year one. So, you know, that was roughly predicated on 3 years of 267, which means we were able to be spring, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward about another third of that list with a third year of 267, and then potentially more than that if some of those projects end up becoming stimulus projects. But I think Rebecca and I could definitely work to try to get something that maybe makes the flow a little bit more clear, because I know it's been a lot of changes over the course of the last year.
Thank you both.
Thanks for that suggestion, Commissioner Tebow. I thought I was the only one that had trouble keeping all that stuff straight. So it's a relief. It's a relief to know someone like you also had trouble with it. That'd be great. I think we'd all appreciate that, Jeff and Rebecca. Thank you. Any other comments? I see Commissioner Beatty has a comment.
Yeah, just a question on the rural scenic byway projects, possibly with the stimulus funding that may be allocated. Are any of those already scheduled with other funding that could possibly shift some funding to other rural paving hotspots, or things that on other rural roads and regions that may be needing some repairs or things like that? Has there been any thought about ability to shift funds back and forth from scenic byways to other rural roads that are needing improvements also, or repairs?
Yeah, absolutely, Commissioner. I think getting new dollars like this is absolutely an opportunity to spread our other dollars further. So we're looking at where we have alignment with byways, with projects that are planned, and in what year they're planned. And I think we'll have a pretty good strategy to show you all that gets as much done as we can.
All right, thank you. Final comments from anyone before we let Rebecca go?
I think you're stuck with me for a while, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, how about if I say let Rebecca go on this item? So shall we move on then to vehicle miles traveled and travel patterns statewide? And I understand you're on that Rebecca as well as Eric Sabina.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Actually, the heavy lift on this one will come from Eric, so I'll pretty quickly turn this over. This was a presentation that we had on the docket for last month. And so glad to see that we were able to fit it in this month. And it's a follow-up to some questions that came up on a commission meeting a couple of months ago on, we present to you all a lot VMT data in these series of tables. But I think some commissioners were wondering, okay, where do we collect all that? How do we know where and how people are traveling? And we've got quite a story there. So Eric, are you on and ready to take this over? There he is.
I am on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. I'm assuming Jennifer will advance the slides.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, as Rebecca said, thank you all again, commissioners, for spending some time with me this afternoon. We have made extensive use of VMT data, and we often come to you to talk about one thing or another in planning and engineering and operations that's based on data of this sort. And my management felt that it would be useful to you all as you sort of judge what you're hearing in sort of presentations of that sort, to have a little bit more background on the VMT data that we use so frequently. So I'm just going to touch on, sort of at a high level, and of course, ask me any questions that you like, and usually I can answer them, to cover this on sort of a broad level of how we get it, what we have, and what we're doing to improve it, which we're always doing. So next slide, please. I generally divide the data that we have out of which we build VMT and related data into these three sort of large buckets. And I'll go over each one here in a second. Traffic count data. We have a large, extensive traffic count program. We periodically conduct surveys of Colorado citizens and regarding their travel behavior, and I'll touch on that as well. And then, as I know we're all familiar with, there's been this ever-expanding entry of what we often call big data into the transportation planning and engineering world. And I'll hit a little bit on that as well. Next slide, please. So traffic counts, this is, I guess you'd say, this is the one of most ancient lineage at CDOT. We have been taking traffic counts since longer ago than I'm quite capable of telling. I think that states have been gathering count data since the 30s, and CDOT was one of those as well. And that program, being of such long extent, is a pretty mature program. One of the two basic categories that I would describe of counts is we have what we call ATRs, or automated traffic recorders. Those devices count cars 24/7 throughout the year. They are well integrated into the federal program. We provide data to the feds off of those, directly off of the ATRs for their monthly tracking of VMT around the country. They are, as you might imagine, since they are literally embedded in the pavement and have sort of a lot of electronics associated with them that has to be maintained continuously, they're a bit of a heavy lift. They're terribly valuable, but as the result is we can't have too many of them. We have between 150 and 120. We're adding a few as we speak. We actually have a brand new one on 6th Avenue just west of Sims that was terribly exciting for nerdy people like me to drive over for the first time a couple of weeks ago or so. The strength of these things, as I note, they're 24/7, and that's hugely important for the work that we do. The downside is, as we note, they are sort of a considerable amount of effort to maintain, but worth it, I guess, is the short way to put it. We also have a program of what we call short duration counts. These typically are about 48-hour counts that are done. I'm sure we've all seen the little tubes from time to time here and there that we drive across on the road. That's the technology that is used to do these short duration counts. And we do a very large number of those things. We do between 2,500 and 3,000 of them every year. That project is conducted by a vendor, consultant that we keep on for, 5-year stints. And as opposed to doing it in-house. It's my understanding CDOT used to do a lot of this work in-house many years ago, but it's been working very well to outsource that and to have us just double check their work and manage them from inside. And next slide, please. This is just a map of the ATRs. It's another one of those somewhat busy maps where you can spend, if you're a map nerd like me, you can spend lots of time staring at it. But it might be easiest to just look at the blow up there on the right-hand side, and you can see the squares there are locations in the Front Range area. But we have such counters all over the state, from Utah border to the Kansas border and north to south. Next slide, please. So surveys, these are projects that I've been involved in periodically over my career. The most standard survey to do is what's called a household travel diary survey. And it is just kind of what the name implies. We recruit a bunch of citizens of Colorado and we ask them to fill out a travel diary. That has, the way that's been done is morphing over the years, and I'll describe that in just a second. The last one we did covered the Front Range only, and that was, I led that when I was working at Dr. Cog. The partners included the 4 Front Range MPOs. We surveyed around 30,000 residents, around 12,000 households. We are right at the tail end of contracting to start the statewide survey the previous survey having been done in 2010. We'll be doing this survey in 2021, we expect, again, depending a little bit on how COVID turns out. But at this point, we're feeling like we'll most likely begin in the latter part of 2021 with field operations, expecting to do around 50,000 Coloradans this time, around 20,000 households. And we will be doing the whole state for the first time ever, which is very exciting to me. So we, will no longer just be having Front Range data, but we'll be able to get more solid and more comprehensive data on citizens' travel behavior in rural and mountain areas as well. So that's really, I can hardly overstate how excited I am about that. As notes here, these are big, expensive projects, and you all have provided some of the state's funds to support that. And again, thank you very much. That is really, really important to the success of this project. We are, again, partnering with all 5 of the state's MPOs, and around 60% of the funding of this project is being provided by them, and typically they're federal funds that they get. Because these are large, arduous projects, we can only do them about once a decade. Past surveys were literally diaries, in the sense that we would mail respondents a diary, they would jot stuff down in it, then we would call them up, usually that evening or the next evening, and a survey professional would interact with them and take down their information and enter it into an interface and a database. This time, most of our respondents are going to be responding using a smartphone app, as everything is these days. And that is going to, in a nutshell, really reduce the amount of work that everyone has to do, especially the respondents. And on the basis of that, we will be able, based on experience we've seen with other surveys in other parts of the country, be able to get multi-day data for the first time. Previously, we were only able to ask people for 1 day's worth of data. The value of multi-day data for us is we'll be able to get weekend data, which is, I don't have to emphasize to all of you how important it is to, work on the, to work on recreational planning, I-70 corridor and things of that nature, and that weekend data is crucial for that. So it is another really huge deal that we're going to be able to get weekend data in this survey. These data are very comprehensive and very detailed, and the weaknesses, as we've noted, these are big, expensive projects. Next slide, please. This is just a, sort of a snapshot from the consultant who is working with us on the survey project, and just gives a few little details that are important to the endeavor about the smartphone app that they have It's supported in both Android and iPhone. These smartphone apps track people around using GPS, and so we have to manage the GPS so that it doesn't drain people's battery too much, making them unhappy with the survey and less likely to continue with it. A fair number of other sort of elements of the application that you can see here. Obviously, we'll have Spanish language versions of the app as well as English. Next slide, please. This is just a few screenshots of the app itself that the users would see. And you can see the one on the left showing a map and identifying where the person is at that point and asking them to answer a few questions regarding a stop that the app perceives them as having made. The middle shot is, noting that they may have paid for parking and asking how much they may have paid. And the one on the right just talks about asking questions about how many people might be in the party with whom they're traveling. Next slide, please. So moving right along, as they say, big data, that has been really hot topic in transportation over the last 10 years. I'm sure that general class of data is super important to many other people's fields as well. It's hard for me to imagine that it's that much more important than it's become in transportation, though. It is really, becoming not just big, but enormous. And we are all in the process of learning how best to make use of it, what the quality of the data is, what its limitations are, et cetera. These tend to be data that are purchased by companies whose names you've probably heard: Inrix, TomTom, Here, a few others. They tend to buy it from original producers. It tends to be GPS data from cell phones and GPS in other devices such as vehicles. They package that up in a nutshell and sell it to us. And we've been making quite a lot of use of it over the last 5 or 6 years. The data can be rather expensive, although I think that's also it's a bit of a new market, and so to some extent CDOT is involved in kind of bargaining with some of these companies to try to push their prices down and having some success at that. It's not a sort of a complete random sample of everyone out there. It tends to be what survey people call biased, meaning, just as an example, you tend to get heavier on the young people and somewhat less on the retirees. As one example of quote unquote bias, but it has huge strengths that, as I noted, we're still trying to learn how best to take advantage of. The data is 24/7. It's 365 days a year, and the national and global coverage of it is extremely useful, and the vendors of it are improving every day. Next slide, please. Just a few shots from applications of data of this sort. I won't belabor this, but the graph in the middle with the big dip in it with the red and blue lines, that big dip is one we're all familiar with by now, which is the big drop in trip making that occurred at the sort of height of the COVID travel response. And so, examples of the sorts of visualizations that we can get with this sort of real-time data. Next slide, please. I do just want to touch on and make sure that I've noted that CDOT produces an official yearly VMT estimate, total amount of VMT in Colorado, once per year. It is based on the data that I've been describing, the ATRs and the short duration counts. And as I already noted, it supports FHWA's monthly VMT estimates, which we are also making use of during the COVID period. Next slide, please. So what is all this stuff good for? Some of it, obviously, you have seen in presentations that we've been making to you, but, here's a list of quite a number of such uses. Really spans all of CDOT's activities, from planning to engineering to operations to environmental analysis, kind of you name it. There are plenty more that if I wanted to do more slides, I could show more of them and be happy to talk about each one of these and follow up if you have questions. But in the interest of time, I think I'll move on. Next slide, please. Just an example of one use that we've made of it, I believe in the statewide plan context. You can see DVMT, which stands for daily VMT, there on a column somewhat to the right, separated by both trucks and passenger cars and broken out by all of the state's planning regions and by the engineering regions. So just an example of the kind of summaries that we can and often do. Next slide, please. Another example, this is back to our COVID world, showing the ratio of 2019 VMT versus 2020 at sort of by month there. And again, you can see the big dip in April, showing that in April, we were somewhat less than 60% in 2020 of the VMT that we had at that same month in 2019. And this type of graph has been used, for example, by the governor's office. We've been sending it to them. First, we were sending it to them weekly, and now it's every other week as their part of their tracking efforts in the COVID response. Next slide, please. Another really popular one. This is particularly germane to one of the governor's wildly important goals, VMT per capita. And you can see the orange line at the bottom is VMT per capita, and that is sort of a ratio of compared to 1990. So in other words, 1990 is 1.0. You can see it increasing through the years to about 2005, where it was about 25% more miles per person in 2005 than there had been in 1990. It declines a little bit, and then it drops more rapidly as the Great Recession hit in 2008. Starts to increase again slightly through 2013 to 2017 or so, and then you can actually see it starts to flatten down and even decline very slightly in the last couple of years. The red line in the middle just being our population growth, and obviously that's, continues to be going up pretty linearly. And overall total VMT in the blue in the top, which you can see again in the Great Recession, there's that actual net, gross, I should say, dip in VMT. But then even though VMT per capita has, not really increased very much in the last 6 or 7 years, we still see total VMT increasing because of population growth. Next slide, please. So a lot of work about the past, as I've been talking about. We use these data for developing the statewide model, and you heard an awful lot from me about that, so I'm not going to go into any detail about that, the model itself, but just to note that the VMT data I've been describing has been instrumental in producing that model, and that we have been using that model on a number of projects. We are hot and heavy on several at the moment. The Front Range Passenger Rail, obviously, State Highway 119 corridor study. We provided it to Weld County for them to use in their transportation plan. Several other projects here, such as the Floyd Hill corridor study presently going on. Next slide, please. And, limitations, I've already touched on some of that. Our current model only depicts typical weekdays, so it's really good for sort of the I-25 corridor, you might say. But I-70 corridor has limitations, and part of what, as I've mentioned, we're really hoping to do with the new survey is to get weekend data that will really pump up our capacity to provide engineering and planning support in the recreational corridors in the future. And also, really exciting that we will have really good data on small towns and rural areas throughout the state after we get done with this survey. Next slide, please. And, limitations of what are we doing about it? Oh, I see there's a question. I'll stop talking for a second.
Oh, I don't need to interrupt your presentation. I can wait till the end. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I think I've kind of already touched about a lot of this. We're working on the new survey. I think as I look down the items on this slide, I've mostly hit it, but the thing I particularly just want to reemphasize is that the survey is going to provide us data that will be more comprehensive, mainly as a result of technological advances and the spread of cell phones to, it seems like, nearly everybody at this point. Next slide, please. And then just here at the end, just want to give a brief 4-slide shout out to our GIS group, segueing a little bit. We have recently been greatly expanding the applications that we've built through what we're now referring to as CDOT's GeoHub, with quite a number of tools that are really rapidly being taken up in use. A lot of these use Esri, the sort of global GIS company, to develop map-based applications, and you can see some examples here of tools that are useful, again, across CDOT's enterprise, from the STIP viewer that helps with planning to support of traffic operations. Next slide, please. There we go. This very busy slide is mainly here just to emphasize the breadth of applications of field data. We have really made a big move in the last 5 years or so into field technologies that allow CDOT staff, maintenance staff, and everyone else to go out into the field and gather data using mobile devices, cell phones, and tablets, and then also to use those data while they're out in the field to help improve their work in operations and maintenance and every other thing we do, for all the way from noxious weed management to intelligent transportation systems and high-end operations. It really covers our entire process. Next slide, please. I've already mentioned this. Generally speaking, we also manage the Highway Performance Monitoring System, or HPMS. This is a federally mandated system which comes to us with a great deal of detail about how we're precisely supposed to do it, covering data on all of publicly traversable roads in the state, and gathering data on all of those roads of a wide variety, and then packaging that all up and providing it to the feds for them to do various activities, including one of our favorites, which is allocating federal funding to the states. Next slide, please, and I believe that'll be the last. And then finally, just high-end mapping. I can't say enough about our mapping capability, and our GIS support units work in that area. Everything from our standard statewide highway map that you can see there in the lower right, to all sorts of custom visualizations, such as storm severity along I-70. With that, I believe I am done. And if there's time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
That's great. Thank you so much. I have Commissioner Vasquez up on the queue.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. I learned a lot, and I'm excited about the GIS strength that CDOT has developed. And I have a dumb question. You indicated the number of different recipients for your VMT data. Is the insurance industry another target for that data, or user of that data, as they look at patterns of travel in the state?
Commissioner, I have not had an insurance company directly call me. I will say that I think many of you may have heard of and be familiar with what's called our OTIS system, our Online Transportation Information System. So that is a system where people can simply go and gather our data without us even knowing. So it's possible that they are, but none of them have called me. We've had similar things, for example, of developers specifically calling us. I've had people from Walgreens call us and ask us to help them figure out where's a strong location for them to put a store, and they want to look at what volume is passing that location. Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, mine's on the freight movement. How are you going to incorporate the trucking industry to try to capture them with these surveys, where a lot of those are also, interstate, not just in Colorado? Was just kind of wondering how you were going to capture those, or the seasonal traffic of the rural areas that tend to have the harvest and certain marketing times of the year of movement of goods.
Right. Thank you for that question. We attack the freight problem on several fronts. One is with our counts. On quite a number of them, both the ATRs, the permanent counters, and the short duration counts take what we refer to as classification counts, meaning that we are able to count vehicles separated by different types. There actually are 13 different categories of vehicles that we count. So the first thing is that basic data of different types of vehicles that way. And then on other aspects of this, speaking of surveys, we did a survey in 2015 of commercial vehicles, where we literally contacted companies that operated trucks and commercial vehicles of various sorts and gathered data from them about the movement of those vehicles. And we used that as part of the development of the statewide travel model, which does separately depict commercial vehicles and trucks. And so we made the decision that that survey was recent enough that we didn't need to do another one right now, but we certainly will be looking into when's the next time we should do it again. And then finally, in the big data area, that is a very exciting and a continuing to emerge tool for us. Those vendors are often able to provide data by vehicle type. Many of the initial data sources for these quote unquote big data were truck fleets. They were some of the first vehicles out there to have GPS on them for reasons that are no doubt obvious to you. And so a lot of the data from the big data providers has pretty rich data from commercial vehicles. And those data, being that they're 24/7 and 365 days a year, do allow us to evaluate what's going on at a seasonal level. The one thing that I would love to explore more with you, Commissioner, would be agricultural and harvest vehicles. I'm not as familiar with the extent to which any of those, for example, have GPS devices on them that may be feeding some of these big data sources, but would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, that's with, I guess, part of the ag community. That a lot of them are older, independent truckers, that sort of thing. A lot of those. So they're probably not the big fleets that will have a lot of that big data accessibility. I know at our TPR meeting on Monday, 138 was brought up because of the sugar beet movement. They've harvested, now they're hauling to the sugar beet plant in Fort Morgan. So they're worried about the road because it's fallen apart. There's about 2 miles that they were really concerned about.
Right.
But there's some of those seasonal movements, and then that, depending on when the traffic counting is being done, it's not necessarily catching sometimes the volumes that hit some of these routes different times of the year. So, and it varies on which part of the state you're in. So it can be complicated to figure out when you should count, and it can vary from year to year on weather conditions and all too. So just was wondering how.
So, Commissioner, thank you for bringing that up. We do have plenty of capacity to target counts in special times of year and in special methods. So, and we have done that in the past. I know in far northeast Colorado a few years ago, we stood up for a previous commissioner a program of counting certain roads that were key, I believe, in the harvest context. So again, I'd love to chat with you about ways to come up with a program of doing that would meet some of those needs, because we do have some technologies such as video counting technologies that we can deploy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's great. Commissioner Brackey is next in the queue.
Thank you for the presentation. This was really amazing and very comprehensive. And I think the data, as you were showing all the different uses for it, it's helpful for our community transportation plans. I think historically, a lot of the metropolitan planning organizations have been doing their transportation planning for within their geographic boundary. And what we're seeing, and as our state continues to grow, and certainly along the Front Range, there's a lot of inter-regional travel sheds occurring and growing and changing over time. So this data set is really helpful, I think, for our local communities to be able to look at those travel patterns that go beyond our traditional boundaries, say of the North Front Range MPO or the Upper Front Range or Dr. Cog, where we're really seeing people move from an interregional standpoint and help with that system planning. So thank you for all of your work on that. I did have a question, and I know a lot of this is centered around measuring vehicles and vehicle miles traveled, but I'm wondering if there's an equivalency or some other mechanism that you use to figure out what the person carrying capacity is or the person miles traveled. We're trying to do multimodal transportation and looking at transit and multiple occupant vehicles and even non-motorized transportation. So I'm just curious how this process, or perhaps a complementary process, helps us know our person miles traveled.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner, and for reminding me to talk on some of the other modes. So just sort of hitting them one at a time. The first thing you asked was about vehicle occupancy. So we attack that problem in a couple or two or three different ways. One is we will do vehicle occupancy studies, which are quite challenging, and they have involved over the years literally people stationed next to the roads and trying to peer into the vehicles and see how many people are in there as the vehicles go by. You can imagine that that's partially successful, but it has been a method we've employed in the past. The other way that we get at vehicle occupancy is through the surveys that I mentioned. I think I mentioned one of the smartphone application screenshots asked the question of how many people were in the person's travel party as they're filling out their travel diary. And so we use those data to gather information about how many people are in cars. So that's another source of information about average vehicle occupancies, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, vary by different types of trips. Vehicle occupancy for commute trips is very low, whereas for shopping trips and recreational trips, it's very high. So that's another category that we use for vehicle occupancy. The big data world, just a brief segue on it, is still a little bit limited in their ability to help us with this. And from time to time, I have discussions with some of those folks as they're trying to figure out how they might be able to do it. So that's kind of a stay tuned on that one. As far as non-motorized is concerned, other folks at CDOT are more knowledgeable than me about our bicycle and pedestrian program, but my team does support them with both short duration bicycle and sometimes pedestrian counts. And also we have around 20 permanent counters for bicycle and pedestrian that are deployed around the state. It's a bit of an evolving and emerging program, but that is one of the sources we use for non-motorized. And then finally on transit, which I don't think we mentioned, but I did want to bring it up. We also gather, and our transit and rail folks, again, are much more knowledgeable than I, but we gather extensive data on transit ridership on all of the transit properties around the state. And those data are useful in building the travel model and for just basic planning in ways that the transit and rail folks could explain better than I. So we are pretty active in trying to gather data from across the whole modal spectrum. At this point, just putting in a funny plug, we're as a lot of us know, there are new modes coming at us like scooters and such, and we are very much in the process of trying to figure out how we're going to get data for those. That'll be part of what will happen in the travel survey project that I've mentioned, and I expect us to be trying to figure out what to do about directly counting them on wherever it is they happen to be, whether it's on the sidewalk or bike lanes or what have you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that and recognize it's a lot of work by a lot of people to pull a full picture together. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. A lot of them are very unsung people who really work in the background doing this job day after day. And it is one of those foundations of our house around here.
Mr. Zink.
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate the recognition that one of the shortcomings that needs to be addressed is the rural areas. And being in one of those rural areas, Southwest Colorado, to the extent that VMT has an impact on all kinds of things, it's important that we get a little bit more attention. And it sounds like from what you've said that is in fact, I mean, because you recognize that it's going to be an area to work harder on. True.
And thank you for that comment, Commissioner. The history of this is, as I mentioned, there had never been a statewide travel survey before. We do count throughout the state and have done for many, many years. And, so that's been a positive, but getting these sort of behavioral data of, surveying people about their travel behaviors and, party sizes and, and on and on. When we stood up this survey in 2010, I seemed to specialize in doing surveys at crazy times in our national life. You can imagine we were planning the 2010 survey just as the Great Recession was hitting, and there just wasn't quite the will to put enough money in to do the whole state at that time. So I've been very pushy about wanting to do the whole thing this time because I didn't want to let yet another decade go by. So it's very exciting to me that we're going to have those data, and the statewide planning issues are so obvious to all of you that I don't need to say anything more about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great Great presentation, great comments. Anyone else like to make any comments or have questions for Eric while he's still here on this agenda item? All right. Well, thank you very much. That was fascinating, and we look forward to all the data you're going to bring us. And I'm wondering if we should call you Big Brother Eric, or
well, I'm not that big, but anyway, of course, you know how to reach me and ask me questions at any time. You can always email or phone or text. Thank you all for your time.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. Looks like the next item on the agenda is truck safety video, and John Lorme is going to join you on this one. Is that right?
Yeah, we have Judge John and I have the pleasure of co-managing the freight office, which is just doing tremendous things. And we were so impressed with this video. We wanted to take a few minutes to show commission it. I think it got released yesterday, and we're trying to get a lot of buzz around it because, as you'll see here, after watching this, I even think maybe I could drive a truck down I-70. Which John has much more perspective on. So I'll let him say a few words, and then I think Jennifer's going to cue this up.
So hello and happy holidays, commissioners. As you know me, my name is John Lorme. I'm the Director of Maintenance and Operations. Earlier today, I was listening to the conversation that you were having about Red Mountain Pass and how scary it is. So this kind of really tags along with that conversation. It's almost like it was meant to happen, right? Anyone that's been in Colorado more than a minute or so knows that our mountains kind of rule everything here in Colorado, but the high country is deceptive and dangerous for those that aren't unacquainted, if you will. So commercial motor vehicle drivers can also often be surprised by this unfamiliar terrain that they encounter when they come to Colorado for the first time. High mountain passes, descending, ascending, steep grades, extreme weather changes, and even our natural disasters can have some serious psychological, if not physical, effects on our commercial motor vehicle operators. This video that you're getting ready to see is our way to help bring awareness and educate CMV operators that supply us with all the goods and services that we need in Colorado to keep our state running. This video is a result of a lot of hard work from the freight office. I wish I could take some credit for it, but Rebecca is the driving force behind this. And our partners with the Colorado State Patrol, the Colorado Motors Carriers Association. So we're working to get this out to the industry. As Rebecca mentioned, we blasted it out yesterday, and we're going to continue to push this. We're also using this video in our own training programs that we have here in CDOT. So it'll be one of the videos that our new employees will have to watch when they first come here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to fire up the video if you can.
Welcome to Colorado. When traveling through our state, truckers are likely to face many unique challenges. To keep you and the traveling public safe, we want to make sure that you're prepared for whatever you may encounter.
Hi there, I'm Nate. I'm a Colorado truck driver who's been traveling in and out of the state for over 28 years. Colorado can be one of the most unique and challenging places to drive a truck. While you're here, you might experience
high winds and reduced visibility, low bridge clearances and load-restricted structures, heavy urban traffic areas and construction zones, natural hazards like rockfalls, mudslides, avalanches, and wildfires, wildlife crossing roadways, steep grades and mountain passes, and sudden weather changes. It doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you drive. Crossing the Rockies through the I-70 mountain corridor can be extremely difficult.
In this video, we will highlight some of the challenges of driving this section of Colorado and provide information on best practices so you feel more confident about your trip. Now, there's a lot of information to cover, but just remember, slow, steady, and safe for the long haul. Let's hit the road.
For any journey you make, you should always have a trip plan. For your travel along I-70, make sure you have a plan B as well. Your original plan may not work out due to weather delays, full or closed rest stops, or other impacts. Know ahead of time your options for where you will check your brakes, chain up if there's winter weather, and rest when you need to. And before you hit the mountain corridor, make sure you have a full tank of fuel. That means filling up near Denver before heading west, or between Grand Junction and Rifle before heading east. It is vital to have a full tank of fuel in case heavy snow hits and you need to wait it out. Thanks to the unique weather patterns created by the Rocky Mountains, an important part of your trip plan is being prepared for any type of weather, regardless of the season. The weather you experience through the mountain corridor can be very different from what you might experience in other parts of Colorado. Even just from one side of the Eisenhower-Johnson tunnels to the other, a distance of less than 2 miles, the weather may change from sunny to rainy, no snow to whiteout conditions, or dry to slick roads. While some weather is predictable and you can plan for it, in the mountains, unexpected gusts of wind can hit out of the blue. Know what you're hauling and the impacts that wind can have on your truck. If a high wind advisory is called where you're driving, it's a good idea to stop and wait it out. If a high wind restriction is called, you must stop or you will be ticketed. For any inclement weather you experience, the safest thing you can do is to always follow the posted speed limits, stay in the right lane, and be ready to slow down when necessary. Because of sudden weather changes along I-70, Colorado requires commercial vehicles to always carry chains from September 1st to May 31st when traveling between Highway C-470 and Dots Arrow. When Colorado implements the chain law, flashing lights and signage will alert you. You need to stop and chain up at the first available area. There are multiple chain up areas along I-70. Use them. Do not just pull over on the side of the road. The first chain station you come by may be full, so be sure to have backup options as well. If you don't have chains, do not proceed past Dots Arrow when heading east or Morrison when heading west. Be sure to safely park before reaching these locations to wait until weather improves and it is safe to keep going. While extreme weather might not happen, steep grades are one feature every driver will have to deal with. Between Morrison and Dots Arrow, you will experience numerous steep grades, some as long as 10 miles at a 6 to 8% grade. To reduce the chance of I-70's steep downhill grades causing issues, make sure you're going slow before you descend. Be in a low gear and understand the kind of brakes that you have. Whether going uphill or downhill, truckers must stay in the right lane and only go as fast as the posted speed limit. A good rule of thumb is to go downhill in the same gear you went up in. Stay patient and don't try a risky pass. This can not only slow traffic, but potentially cause a crash. Signs will alert you to steep grades and point to the fact that they're often longer than you expect. In addition to signs, drivers can use new in-truck technology that uses each truck's GPS location to alert drivers to upcoming steep grades. Steep grades and speed are the most common causes of hot and failed brakes, so make sure you always check your equipment and brakes before you start your drive. Along I-70, there are many designated brake check areas. Trucks are allowed to use any chain-up area or rest stop as a brake check area as well. Know your brake failure indicators. If you're not feeling your brakes engage or to the full effect you are used to, you are likely experiencing brake failure. Along with knowing how your brakes feel, look for visual clues as well. If you see smoke, your brakes could be on fire and you need to be prepared to stop immediately or you will be forced to use a runaway truck ramp. If your brakes do fail, runaway truck ramps are the best option to protect yourself, your truck, and everyone else on the road. Runaway ramps are engineered to slow down and stop the truck while keeping the driver safe. These ramps are designed to stop a truck entering the ramp with excessive speeds. To properly use a runaway ramp, make sure you're in the right lane, your flashers are on, and aim for the center of the ramp. There is no penalty for using a runaway truck ramp. If you need it, use it. The other outcomes can be devastating. When you're traveling west and pass through the Eisenhower-Johnson tunnels, there are 2 runaway ramps before you reach Silverthorne. If you miss those ramps and your brakes have failed, do not use exit 205 to leave I-70. Instead, stay on the highway and use the uphill grade just west of Silverthorne to slow down. When you're headed east towards Denver, the Georgetown Brake Check Station is a great place to stop and let your brakes cool. Many drivers reach Georgetown and think they've hit the end of the steep downhill grades. Don't be fooled. Heading down from Georgetown, you're in for miles of additional downhill travel. As you get closer to Denver, the runaway ramp just east of exit 256 is your last option if your brakes fail. After this point, you will be in a major metropolitan area with no other options. If you plan accordingly, follow the best practices we've discussed, and are aware of your brake conditions, you're likely to have a safe trip and avoid needing a runaway ramp. Along I-70, natural hazards are common and can occur throughout the year. Drivers always need to be on the lookout and at the ready for rock slides, mudslides, avalanches, and wildfires. When driving at night, do not outdrive your headlights. They're the only way you will see a hazard ahead. Trip planning will help you know ahead of time about existing hazards or planned rockfall work. But for on-the-road updates, pay attention to electronic signs, call 511, or visit cotrip.org when you're stopped. Wildlife is common along I-70 and in other mountain areas. While animals can pop up anywhere, there are certain areas that have a high number of animal vehicle collisions. Look for signage about animal crossing areas and always be prepared. Watch out for the sides of the road and any brake lights ahead of you. It may feel unnatural, but if wildlife runs in front of your truck, do not swerve or change lanes. Do not hit your brakes. This can cause a crash behind you. The safest thing for you to do is to continue moving forward. While most truck drivers traveling through the mountains use I-70, depending on seasonal highway closures and the materials you're hauling, you may have to travel over some of Colorado's other mountain passes. For instance, if you're traveling with hazardous material, you cannot go through the Eisenhower-Johnson tunnels. You must use US 6 Loveland Pass. Expect sharp curves and steep grades, and watch for tourists getting in and out of their cars for pictures and access to trails. When planning your trip, do not rely on navigation apps for your route. Many of Colorado's mountain passes have specific restrictions that navigation apps don't take into consideration. Now, we've covered a lot of topics in this video. The challenges you could experience on I-70 can seem intimidating, but know that there are many tools and resources available to you. Cotrip.org should be your go-to resource for all Colorado travel information. For trucker-specific information, click the Trucker tab for information on permits, chain and brake check stations, and more. You can also call 511 from anywhere in Colorado for information on road closures and weather conditions. For information about Colorado ports of entry, including locations, electronic clearance systems, and more, visit their website. If you need to acquire a DOT number, contact the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. If you experience any emergencies on the highway, call 911. The Colorado Department of Transportation would like to thank the Colorado Motor Carriers Association and the Colorado State Patrol for being partners in this effort to keep all truck drivers and motorists safe. This I-70 overview video is the first in a series from the Mountain Rules campaign. The Mountain Rules will continue to deliver educational videos to keep truckers and the traveling public safe on all Colorado roads.
Thank you for watching and taking the time to learn how to prepare for Colorado's unique challenges. We hope that you enjoy your travel through our state. And remember, slow, steady, safe for the long haul. I'll see you on the road.
As I was watching that, it occurred to me that the tourism department may not be asking for that video. All the things that can go wrong in Colorado, but I thought it was really well done. I want to point out in particular Michelle Sherman and Craig Hurst for making that happen. Thank you.
So you see a lot of comments in the comment box about what a great video is. Excellent, well done. That's really great. I think Commissioner Adams wants one for 550 or Red Mountain Pass, so maybe we can get him one that shows our snow plow drivers taking the snow off of Red Mountain Pass. That'll keep up at night. All right, any comments or questions for John?
Miss Kathy, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go, Commissioner
Okay.
Hall.
It's having a hard time unmuting here. That was really, really excellent. And as Rebecca said, I'm sure the tourism bosses would love it. But one of the things that's so important for that I-70 corridor is our truck traffic, because there's a huge amount. And that is a really well done video. And I'm hoping, after that terrible tragedy we had last year with the trucker that was so unused to traveling on that this is really a good video. I hope all the truckers will take a chance to look at it. I visited with a friend of mine who has traveled it for years, and he said he never took his truck out of low gear going down into Denver from all the way from Vail on, because it's just too dangerous. So that's a great video. I hope everybody looks at it, and we won't show the tourists, but the tourists will be much safer if all the truckers watch this. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Adams.
Yes, I echo all the comments made about the excellent video. So my question is, John, how will this video find its way into, the areas where people are likely to see it, so that truckers and listen, from my perspective, I'm a fellow who grew up in Florida and on the East Coast, so driving in weather, it was always a challenge from my standpoint. How will we make sure that this is seen by all the people who should see it?
Sir, that's a great question. So the Colorado Motor Carriers Association has really pushed this out initially with all of the schools, the training schools. Most of the commercial motor vehicle training academies and schools are dying for this kind of video or this kind of information. So it's easy to push to them. And all the other associations that the other states associations have all been given this video as well. So, and we posted it on YouTube, and we're making it a talking point whenever we're talking about freight with our partners. So we're doing our best to get it out there. It's not as hard as it used to be because of the internet. But one of the things, I believe Rebecca can tell me if I'm right on this, we're trying to get it in Spanish as well, so that we can push this out to some of the drivers that have a hard time with English and really are, Spanish is their first language. So, and then I think we got plans to get it in other languages as well.
I think that's excellent, John. One thing that we were talking to the Community College of Denver, and they have some programs where they do the CDL licenses. So I assume all the places that do train people on CDL licensing and other things, that when you use training and the comment about training, then you're also talking about all those kind of institutions and organizations as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very much so.
Great. Thank you. I've got Commissioner Stanton and then Commissioner Beatty.
Thanks, Chair Stewart. John, that's a great video, and it made me think about other vulnerable users. Truck drivers are professionals, but we have so many people that come into the state via Denver International Airport, get in a rental car, don't have the equipment or knowledge, and they go barreling up the hill and run into tough times. They may not know about chains. They may not know about only having a four-wheel drive. Does CDOT have a brochure at least that could be given out at DIA, so that even though they probably won't read it, they would have been given information kind of roughly about what you had on your video? Thank you.
Sir, I don't know if we have a actual hard brochure, but I happen to know my predecessor now works at DIA, so I will look into that. And it shouldn't be a big deal or a hard thing for us to accomplish, by no means. And we definitely could post it up in the corridors along their public messaging system. But you are right, yes, sir. It is oftentimes motorists that have a hard time dealing with the truck traffic more so than the truckers dealing with them. So, yes, sir.
And we can't forget the west to eastbound traffic also, which usually comes out of Salt Lake or Grand Junction, and there might be a way to get to rental people out that way to if people are trying to cross in the winter. Thank you.
Yes, sir. When the when CMV traffic is traveling down these grades and they're going, ultra slow, if you will, it often catches some of our motorists that are off guard. and they'll rear end a tractor trailer. So some of the major incidents that we have on the road, at least in the mountain corridor, are first-time commuters or first-time travelers that are rear-ending a tractor trailer. So fully understand what you're asking, and I'll get on it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If I could,
Looks like Matt has something to help out here.
yes, if I can jump in really quickly, to the point about a sort of a general product, not necessarily for truckers, we actually have a flyer that we have distributed at DIA and I believe a few other locations. I'll follow up really quickly to see if we can get some copies in your hands, Commissioner, and any of your colleagues.
Ben, my
That sounds
experience
great.
that people don't read brochures, and I think John's point about using the message boards and flashing this at them down in the gate area where the rental car places, buses are, or over in the rental cars themselves is a way to get at them, get their attention.
We have worked specifically to locate these at rental desks so that when people are waiting for that paperwork to clear and they're killing a little bit of time, we have a product to catch their attention right then and there.
Thanks, Matt.
Great. Commissioner Beatty?
Yeah, I think it's a great video. I did hear an ad on the radio yesterday also telling truckers they need to fill up on the west or east side of the mountains to make sure they had fuel to get through if they get stopped. So I know that's already out on the radios. Just to comment with the tourism piece, I do think maybe some education availability for tourism, that you may encounter slow trucks on steep grades. And then also if you're in an RV or towing boats or a camper, you may have those same braking issues on those long grades. So our tourism could use some of the education also, I think. Just making everybody be safe. I don't know how many accidents there are involving campers and RVs and boats in the mountain corridors, but I would guess there's at least some. I know I've smelled hot brakes driving down, coming off of pickups and RVs. So I think the tourism piece may be something we want to consider, also giving at least some basic information. So
yes, sir.
I did want to mention yesterday we had an ambulance have the side ripped off by Lyman. They were responding to a vehicle that had gone off the road with the icy conditions, and then somebody came along and hit the ambulance and took the side off the ambulance yesterday. So this is a statewide issue during inclement weather. So thank you.
Yes, sir. As a result of that, we ended up closing I-70 between Denver and Lyman because of the blowing snow and the whiteout conditions. So, yep, I'm glad nobody was hurt.
Yeah, I'm glad none of the responders were in the ambulance at the time.
Well, that was a great video, lots of great information, John. Thanks a lot. So I'm keeping a scorecard, and you're at the top of the score so far with the virtual tour that we had of Eisenhower, and now we got this great video. Eager to see what you bring to us next.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
Who says we can't do this stuff while we can't meet? I mean, it's great stuff. Rebecca, are we moving on to scenic byways now?
We are.
All right. Good deal.
Then you'll be you're done with me after this, I think. But I'm going to say this is probably the most beautiful PowerPoint presentation you will see all year, because we have such a gorgeous state, and these byways travel right through our most beautiful areas. So I'm pleased today, though, to have help in giving this presentation. Nathan Boyles is on. He is chair of the Scenic Byways Commission, which several of our commissioners know well, because Commissioner Hall, I think, served on it for quite a few years. I want to say 7 or 8, but I could be wrong. And Commissioner Brackey serves on the commission right now. And so it is a governor-appointed commission that has members from the agencies, from the tourism office, from the private sector, from History Colorado. And Nathan just does a great job as chair. Lenore Bates is our lead staff on that, and she's actually out hunting right now. So Nathan's kindly offered to walk you through the first part of this deck, and I'll sort of pick it up towards the end. Nathan, are you on and you have pretty good audio?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, commissioners, for having me here today. While I don't have a fancy video and I'm following on the heels of some awesome presentations, thank you, Lenore, who is not here today, but she put the slides together along with Rebecca and have some really captivating images that I think capture what the scenic byways really mean to Colorado and what they mean to me. I do serve as chair of the commission. I represent formerly History Colorado and Steve Turner as the executive director. I am an archaeologist by training, so I'm also the president of Metcalf Archaeological Consultants. We're a 40-year-old Colorado company, proud and strong. I'm also an Air Force brat. I grew up on the academy for the first 7 years of my life, and I remember every summer, even after my dad retired, we moved to Arizona, they would pile us into the minivan and we'd hit the road. And so I have many fond memories as a child of growing up on the road trip. And in fact, one of my favorite stories returning to Colorado was one that my dad told us about a Native American warrior who set out to rescue a settler wagon train that was stranded in the mountains. This warrior was named Falling Rock, and they were never heard from again. And yet all these signs posted around the highways of Colorado said, "Watch for Falling Rock." And so my dad would convince us to keep our eyes peeled and glued to the window to see if we had any luck and finding traces of Falling Rock. And so coming back into Colorado and seeing those signs again brought back so many memories of the open road. When I was asked to serve on the commission, it was truly an honor because of that love for the open road, but also with my passion in history, archaeology, and then just a deep, deep love and appreciation for the state of Colorado. This is truly just a dream role come true. And so it's been a pleasure serving. I'm in my 4th year out of 6 serving on the commission, and I came on as chair this year. I will speak to the notes that Lenore has put together for us today, and then I'll offer just, again, some personal stories about my role on the commission and what we're doing. As you can see here, we're celebrating 30 years, actually 31 technically years of the Byways program here in Colorado, which in and of itself is a milestone. I think that's pretty cool because coming on, I didn't know that the program was so old. And in fact, that it was such a storied program that many other states use Colorado as an example for their own byways program. We have, let's see, moving through the slides here. So there was note of a 30th anniversary symposium that obviously was delayed because of the pandemic this year. That has been bumped to next year. And we're looking forward to that. That's May 5th and 6th in 2021. I believe we're still holding it in Ouray. Next slide, please. Okay, we're on it. Actually, transportation and tourism. I love this photo because this is Lookout Mountain, and this is the Lariat Loop Byway. You're overlooking the Valley of Golden. You can see South Table Mesa and North Table Mesa there. This speaks to just one sort of overlooked facet of the scenic and historic byways, and that is it's not just the roads itself, it's not just the scenic vistas or say the cultural intrinsic values of a particular drive. It is also these things that are just as important: the safety pullouts, the retaining walls. So these are actually historic structures that could be designated for protection under state and federal laws, should we wish to pursue it. These sorts of structures also open up funding mechanisms for the nonprofits and organizations that helped CDOT and other parties maintain the byways and promote them. So I love this photo because it speaks to the history, and there is a deep history of some old roads in Colorado, which Lenore highlights later on in this presentation. But again, this is one facet of the byways we often overlook, is the actual hardscape that makes the drive so safe and appreciable. Next slide, please. Here we go, transportation and recreation since the inception of the Byways program. That is the National Byways program in 1952. A lot's happened since then. So Mission 66 created in 1952, it called out opportunities for preservation of parks, parkways and seashores. That led into the national program of the Scenic Roads and Parkways in 1964. A proposed program for the Scenic Roads and Parkways studied by the U.S. Department of Commerce was commissioned in 1966. You have the Federal Highway Administration opening in 1967. There is an acronym here. I will admit that I don't know, ORRC. They came on in the 60s and again in the 80s to reinforce what was happening with the national and local byways programs. And then heading into where we're at today, into the 90s and 2000s, as you can see, we're starting to come back into that fold of what does it mean to have not just a vibrant national byways program, which up till 2012 included a grants program for state level byways and scenic byways programs. But now with the passage of the Great American Outdoors Act, we're starting to see an emphasis again on not just the recreation and the beautification of America via the network of scenic byways, but also, I think, in particular, an emphasis and a revisit of the economic impact that these scenic byways can have. They are the literal and figurative arteries to rural Colorado, to rural America. Many of the communities along byways survive and even thrive because of the tourism that happens along those arteries. And we have some very interesting statistics moving into this presentation that I'd like to share. But next slide, please, Rebecca. Okay. So a quick snapshot coming from Lenore. Through the process of the 1952 through 62 surveys by, here's that acronym that I didn't know, Outdoor Recreation and Resources Review Commission, ORRRC. They determined through the process of that decade-long analysis, they determined that America's most popular recreational need was driving for a pleasure. I, in particular, love it. I love the windshield time, probably much to the chagrin of my children and my wife, but I still pile them in and I hit the road because I like being able to stop and determine my destinations and how much time I spend at each location rather than have it predetermined by another mode of transportation. Lenore notes in her comments that even today, Colorado is the only state in which taking a scenic drive is the most searched activity on Google. Now that statistic comes from December of 2019, almost exactly a year ago when she accessed that information. I'd be very curious to see if that has changed since 2020 and the new reality that we're facing with respect to tourism. Some quick notes about the historic nature of, in particular, specifically scenic byways within Colorado. The Lariat Loop Scenic Mountain Drive, which we saw that first historic image earlier, that opened around 1914. Peak to Peak was established in 1918. And then Old Fall River Road, which is a Rocky Mountain National Park motor nature trail, so unpaved, opened roughly around 1921. Just for a quick reference, you can look at a search of 100 years of Colorado transportation history and find even more information about what was going on over the last 50, 60 years of this program. So next slide, please. Okay, here's a quick highlight of how many byways we have in Colorado. I think we've been duking it out somewhat with the state of Oregon on how many byways we actually have, but we do hold the number of 26 and 11 nationally designated scenic byways, which pat on the back to Colorado, I think that is the most byways within one state in the union. We also have pending nominations for 3 more national byways, and we were hoping to get that announcement before this meeting, but it sounds like it might be coming next week. 10 of our 26 byways are National Forest Scenic Byways, and 2 of them are BLM Backcountry Byways. That just speaks to 2 partners on the commission. The commission what I love about the commission, I come from the private sector. I have never served in a state level capacity. This appointment, like I said, has been a true honor. I have learned a ton from my peers on the commission, and I'm particularly really encouraged by the collaboration across agencies, both federal and state, that make this program so vibrant, so successful. And I think right there, those bullet points illustrate that two of our major partners are the National Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. In particular, Lenore notes that while the byways function largely independently, and some of them are run by nonprofit organizations, some of them are run by ad hoc committees of residents along the byway themselves, chambers of commerce and business owners are involved. CDOT is the one unifying theme and ribbon that brings them all together. And so the role that CDOT plays in the byways program is absolutely essential, not just in what y'all do to promote driver safety, education, and so forth, but what Lenore does for the commission. Her role in particular, over the course of the last 4 years, we had some question marks on where we could find the support. I'm so thrilled that CDOT continued the support of Lenore's role in that capacity, because it allows the commission to really fulfill our mission. Next slide, please. Here you can see a map from Colorado.com. One of our other partners on the commission is the Colorado Tourism Office. So they created a microsite for all the 26 byways. This was a first of its kind in Colorado. I was part of this project, although it was, like I said, largely led by CTO. It was grant funded by History Colorado, and the resulting output from this effort is fabulous. I encourage you to check it out via Colorado.com. But this is the map interactive that you can find on that website. And this links you directly to landing pages for each one of those 26 byways, giving you itineraries on how best to travel them, what sort of weather conditions to consider, what time of year is the best to travel, places you can stop over. It's just a great snapshot for visitors coming into the state that allows them to really understand and access the byways, because before it was highly fragmented. You had individual byways creating their own microsites, their own mobile applications. And so from experience, when you have a lot of visitors coming in for maybe a once a year visit or twice a year visit, you quickly forget the app that you downloaded or the website that you went to. And so centralizing this, especially on a website that is so highly visited already, really elevated the byways and the program which supports it. Next slide, please. All right. Here we go into the 6 intrinsic qualities. I love speaking to these because, again, I'm an archaeologist and a history nerd at heart. And I was asked to serve on the commission to represent archaeology and history, so the historic in the Scenic and Historic Byways Commission name. But you can see here, these are the 6 overarching qualities that we look for to designate a byway, first and foremost, but then also sort of the yardstick by which we maintain that designation. Right now, there is a moratorium on any new byways being nominated to the Colorado program, but we are looking to reshape that. Also, I mentioned back in 2012 that ended the federal funding, which allowed a grant program to exist for byways to tap for financial support for various endeavors. But quick shout out to my favorite one, archaeological there. Along these byways, there are so many amazing sites that folks can see, and that there's not a lot of access to them, especially digitally. So when you're out there in the real world and you're taking these byways, you're combining it with what the CTO has done with their microsite, you can start to discover the stories that are so uniquely Colorado, and yet so much of a broader story about human history in this area. Next slide, please. All right, this is my final talking point. So back in 2013, per Lenore's notes, a study was commissioned to look at the economic impact of the byways since the inception of the program. Here you can see direct impact, indirect impact, and that is a B, folks, that is $1 billion. That's quite an economic impact for not just the state of Colorado, but again, those rural communities that depend so heavily on the byways. Total impact, we're getting up there around 5 billion. And again, this is old data. I can speak to a report that was commissioned by History Colorado and Colorado Preservation Inc. in 2015. that highlighted tourism, in particular cultural tourism. At the time in 2015, out of roughly about 15 billion or so in overarching tourism dollars spent in the state, more than half of that was spent on heritage tourism or cultural tourism, meaning folks were coming into the state predominantly by car, averaging about 65% of visitors were arriving by car with the intended purpose to go to a historic or cultural site along a scenic byway. So those numbers cannot be overstated. I mean, this is a real direct link to economic development, to rural development, to expanding the reach of what is our brand here in Colorado. With that, Rebecca, thank you. I'll just pass it back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Nathan. That was great. Okay, I will, if you transition to the next slide, I just want to talk a bit about CDOT's role, which Nathan touched on, the fact that we play this, I think, really important coordination and organizing role, and that's largely delivered via Lenora Bates, who serves as our CDOT Byways Program Manager. This is nearly her full-time job within the planning group. And boy, is she famous in the byways world. She has been doing this for a long time, is very well known in Colorado, and was recently appointed to the National Byways Commission, which is just a great nod to the state. Our regions also do a lot of support for these byways, everything from assisting in some environmental studies. Our landscape architects help make sure that the visual character of these corridors is maintained when we're doing projects out there. I know our historians spend a lot of time in our planners. And then we also do simple things like producing those beautiful columbine signs that you see. You go to the next slide. Our other role, as I mentioned at the beginning, is serving on the commission. This is one of the favorite parts of my job, that I'm able to be an ex officio member to this group. I serve on it with Commissioner Brackey, and as I noted, Commissioner Hall was a member before. I'm looking forward to that meeting in Ouray that I hope we get to have, because it's really a chance to be able to see the state when the commission has meetings out and about. You go to the next slide. So looking to the future, Nathan mentioned earlier that we have a bit of a contest with the state of Oregon. I would call it a high stakes competition. I really want to win this one. Right now, we have more national designations than anyone, but Oregon, I think, is just a byway behind us. So with the recent opening at the federal level to submit new national byway designations, CDOT threw, or the state really threw 3 more into the mix: Highway of Legends, the Los Caminos, and Silver Thread. We are expecting to hear any day, and I am hopeful that we will continue to leave Oregon in the dust on this. But it'll be just a great opportunity to have more open space. Next slide. So a couple other emphasis areas. Our partners at the tourism office have just been tremendous and have really done so much to promote the tourism aspects of byways. They completely redid a website that is just simply beautiful, and are working together with the commission to look at things like audio tours of the byways and different kind of spins on all the different things you can learn and see when you're out in the byways. Next slide. We've got a gorgeous photo exhibit. I hope some of you all saw it when it was at DIA for a while. It was in the rotunda of the state capitol. It's on its way to the Colorado Springs airport and then hopefully the state fair. Just a gorgeous photo exhibit. And so we're just trying to catch people when they're out and about their daily life and remind them what a beautiful system of byways we have. And then the next slide is sort of shifting gears a bit. There's also a lot of partnership work, again, to look at our byways as opportunities to put in electric vehicle charging stations. This is able to tap existing dollars that come from the Volkswagen settlement and some CEO funding. But it's a nice theme to electrify the byways and then to create that network out there so that you can get an electric car and get from one end of the state to the other and be able to charge and see some of our most beautiful remote places. So there's some ambitious goals there, but the team is making some great progress. And I know Kay's group has been helping achieve this. Next slide. And then we always try to loop back again to our 10-year plan. And I think there's always an opportunity to look again at what we're able to do for the byways. I mentioned earlier today that the proposed dollars for the stimulus had a call out for the byways. And this sort of gets to Commissioner Beatty's point earlier. You know, a lot of these align with those same rural roads that we've been wanting to repave and improve for many years. You know, even though these places are well traveled and beautiful, that doesn't mean we've been able to fix the pavement out there. So this is just another example of us trying to make the connection with what we can achieve with the 10-year plan. And I believe if you go to the next one, I think that is it. Yeah, again, ending on really just a beautiful set of pictures. And I did want to offer it to Commissioner Brackey. It looks like actually she just popped up in the comments. As a sitting commissioner on this group, Commissioner Brackey, I'd love your thoughts or adds here too.
Oh, thanks so much, Rebecca. I apologize for my video. It's not working, so I will just talk. Anyway, I want to say thank you to Rebecca, to Nathan, and to Lenore for the phenomenal work that it goes into supporting the Colorado byways. I feel so honored to have the role to serve as the liaison with the Transportation Commission with the Scenic and Historic Byways. It's just a phenomenal group of people who are working so hard to make a difference. Each of our meetings are so inspiring. When I hear from everyone, they're working so hard and with relatively few resources to make such a big impact. It's such an amazing partnership, as was mentioned, between with CDOT, with local community stakeholders and nonprofits, and also agency partners from the state and federal side, as well as the private sector. So it truly is a role model approach for delivering this amazing experience for people throughout Colorado, and then, as was mentioned, all of the tourists that come to our beautiful state. I think that another attribute of this program that really strikes me is the level of co-benefits that are achieved through the work. Again, the hard work that's done within the communities and the investment dollars to create the combination of mobility, economic vitality, and sustainability, and education, and showcasing our state. I really encourage people to check out the website. It is phenomenal. I've been on it several times. I've used it to plan a trip for our family. We went out to look at the Pawnee Pioneer Trail, which I really encourage people to see. Oftentimes we think of our scenic byways predominantly as in the mountain communities, but there's beautiful scenery in eastern Colorado and the Eastern Plains and the Pawnee Buttes. And then I've lived in this region for almost 30 years, and I learned through the materials from the byways just about the local history of the communities in northern Colorado and all of the contributions that have been made and the discoveries along the way. I think another opportunity with the website is, especially now when we're all staying home more, you could take the virtual itineraries and learn so much. And I think they're really great options for children who are home learning to learn about our state and to do it in a very interactive way, and again, a beautiful way. And a little fun tidbit about the website, it even includes a link you can click on for road trip music to accompany your trip, whether you're in the car or at your computer, or your phone. So it's really well done. And again, linking the work with our the electrification, I think, is really cool as well. So I'm just very thankful, and that the work that's being done by this entire team is phenomenal. So thank you all for sharing that with the full commission. And to my fellow commissioners, if you have ideas or suggestions about the byways, please let me know, and I'd be glad to share that with our upcoming meetings. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Commissioner Brackey. This was a fabulous presentation. Two comments from me. One is, I know Commissioner, Executive Director Lou speaks frequently about a book that she loves called Vacation Land, which talks about tourism and the beauty of Colorado High Country. And I've got that on my wish list, but now I have going on this whole matrix of scenic byways on my wish list to do. And since none of us are traveling internationally right now, it might be a good thing. I have a question about, I'm just curious about rest stops. If there are rest stops along these scenic byways, if there are, what kind of condition are they in? I know we've talked as a commission numerous times about the importance of being sure that we have adequate rest stops or rest stops that are well thought out, clean, safe, lit, that kind of thing. And just curious if we do have rest stops, and if we do, what kind of condition they're in, and do we have the means to continue to put those on our improvement list?
What a great question, Chair. I don't know off the top of my head, but we do have that data. We just completed a rest stop condition survey just a couple of years ago. It's now one of our assets, one of our 12 assets. It's got, I think, only about $5 million set aside starting next year. Not nearly enough money, but we have put it on the list. And if I could come back to you next month, I could easily pull that up and give you a sense of the condition along our byways in particular.
Absolutely. My curiosity just was piqued when I was thinking about how I love to travel, and I also often need a rest stop. So
Me too.
I appreciate that information. All right. Any other comments from anybody, commissioners or others on this Zoom meeting? Just great stuff today. Great stuff. And pass our kudos on to Lenore for putting that presentation together, and Nathan did an excellent job giving that presentation, and the enthusiasm that he brought to the presentation is appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you, commissioners. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So it's 2:23. At this point, we were supposed to adjourn and take a 5-minute break, and then call to order at 2:50. Do you think it's possible for us to start our regular board meeting early if we took a 10-minute break at this time? I know there's some people who would be joining us for the commission meeting. So please give me some direction as to whether you think we could just take a 10-minute break at this point and then reconvene and start our regular meeting.
Yeah, I think we can probably take the 10-minute break. We may just double check. Jennifer or Steve, we're not having anybody join us for the condemnation agenda item today, are we?
None that I'm aware of, no.
I'm
Okay.
not aware of anybody either. The only people I'm aware of that would be joining us are for the recognition, and I'm working with them now to get them ready.
Great. And I'll check in with John Cater if he's not, haven't noticed if he's on yet, just to let him know we're starting a little bit early. Otherwise, I think we should be okay to go.
Okay, that sounds great. So let's take a 10-minute break or so and bring us back at 2:40, do you think?
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right. Thanks everyone for reconvening, and we'll start the meeting. It's 2:40. And the first order of business is for Herman to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gifford,
Here.
Commissioner Stanton,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
Commissioner Brackey,
Here.
Commissioner Vasquez,
Here.
Commissioner Zink,
Here.
Commissioner Hickey,
Here.
Commissioner Tebow,
Here.
Commissioner Beatty,
Here.
Vice Chair Hall,
Here.
Chair Stewart.
Here. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comments. If any were provided, I didn't see anything provided prior to the meeting. Just want to verify there are no public comments.
No, ma'am, I haven't received any public comments.
Thank you, Jennifer. The next agenda item is, it will be our pleasure today to welcome a new commissioner, and Lisa Hickey will be sworn in. And Herman, I think that's your duty.
Commissioner Hickey, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Elizabeth Hickey,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform the duties
and faithfully perform the duties
of the office of the Transportation Commission,
of the office of the Transportation Commission,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome, Commissioner Hickey, and I think that is a historic first. I don't think anyone else of us have ever been virtually sworn in. We've been sworn in, I'm sure, but not sworn in. Thank you very much for joining us. It might be the first of many times, who knows? Well, thank you very much for joining us, and it's our great pleasure to welcome you. And I'm sure commissioners will have some comments, but it's great to have that seat filled, to have 11 of us again representing the whole state of Colorado. And thank you very much, Director Liu and Governor Polis, for making that appointment to the commission. Next order of business is comments from the chair and individual commissioners, and I'll start the roll call with comments from Commissioner Gifford, please.
Always first, and I always have the least to say. So I don't have a whole lot of commentary on everything that's happened in the past month, but this has been a fun meeting because it reminds us all, in terms of the scenic byways and also the truck video, of what a wonderful state we live in and how much fun it's going to be when we finally get to go back out and travel it together, which I hope will happen while I'm still on the commission this spring. So thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Stanton.
Thanks, Chair Stewart. I want to thank Paul Jositis and the CDOT team for the Safer Streets initiative. He mentioned yesterday at RTC that in Jefferson County, Lakewood, West Colfax Avenue, 806 crashes last year, of which 93 were pedestrian and bike related. And of course, they're usually on the losing end. So Safer Streets is really an important thing that hopefully will turn the corner on some of these horrible accidents. The other thing I just wanted to mention was in the last week, the 27 countries of the European Union and the People's Republic of China have both made very significant carbon cutback goals. And I think it's significant that Rebecca White and the planning team and Kay Kelly are working forward with Teresa and the greenhouse gas initiative, because the world is moving and we need to move too. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
Well, again, I'd like to just say very little. It's been quiet period since our last meeting. I have had a few meetings with Dr. Cog that I've participated in. I've also been working with Paul Jasitis. He and his team have been doing a terrific job. We're working on an initiative. It's at the very early stages. It's a Santa Fe initiative from, I think, from C470 to 25. And it's been a really nice learning experience for me working with the different communities and the different groups that will have an interest in that project as it moves along. So I'm learning a lot from that process. So it's been a really good experience.
Thank you. Commissioner Brackey.
I thought I'd give the video one more try. It didn't work. So much for my IT skills today. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I want to add my welcome to Commissioner Hickey. We're so glad that you've joined us and look forward to working with you. And in terms of looking back over the past month, it's continued to be a busy year, even in this virtual environment, and the continued work by the North Front Range MPO and the Upper Front Range Transportation Planning Region, and a lot of new leadership coming forward from those groups. So it'll be good to work with them in the new year and get connected on all of our regional transportation goals together. And I think the other piece that makes me hopeful this time of year is looking forward into the new year. I mean, obviously 2020 has been rough, and it'll be nice to be able to turn the page on 2020 and look forward to a hopefully brighter days ahead in 2021. I'm hopeful that progress will be made through the state legislative process to explore transportation funding initiatives. I'm always hopeful and optimistic, so we'll see how that plays out. And I appreciate all of the leadership at the state house. Also, I thought it was great news to hear yesterday that Pete Buttigieg had been recommended for the US DOT secretary. So I think that's exciting news, and I think he'll bring a lot of values to our national transportation scene that are very complementary to what we're working on here with CDOT. His proposal for National Vision Zero safety policies and multimodal and modernizing the ways we look at transportation funding. So I was excited about that news. So there does seem to be a lot of great things to look forward to into the new year, and just appreciate all of the work that we have been able to get done together this year, and hopefully more and better to come. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Vasquez.
I want to add my welcome to Lisa joining the commission. I look forward to working with you on many of the issues before us. I did want to note in the news that Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm appears to be in line for Secretary of Energy, and this is a great boost for zero energy, ZEV programs, not only nationally, but in our state. Finally, I wanted to thank Shannon Gifford for prompting me that there was a Rocky Mountain Institute workshop being held this past week that I attended. It was focused on climate change and the work that they're doing not only in Colorado and in the US, but globally. And a couple of things I wanted to highlight for those of you who couldn't attend is they are working on a freight program, electrification of freight. They have a goal by 2030 to electrify 100% of the final mile and urban delivery. They also want to establish an e-trucking demonstration corridor in each of the 3 countries, the US, China, and India. That doesn't exist at this point, with a target of 20% electrification by 2030. So these are aggressive goals. It's delightful that RMI is here in Colorado. We can engage with them and learn from them what they're doing. And they had a lot to say about what was going on in Colorado with the greenhouse gas roadmap, et cetera. But I've taken up enough time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vasquez. Vice Chair Hall.
Well, welcome to Lisa to joining our group. Wish we could meet you in person, and hopefully we will soon. Commissioner Zink and I attended the Gunnison Valley TPR by Zoom, of course. And it's always nice to see what a good job Vince does, because he always manages to bring a perspective. He listens so intently. He always has a good report for all of us. It was good too that Little Blue Canyon project has been pretty controversial in our area. And it was very nice to see one of our loudest that has been opposed to it was so encouraged and was so upbeat about what a good project it's going to be and how helpful. We know it'll be painful in the process, but we have now a contractor in place, and so that very important project be moving forward. I was also happy to see in the report that we have 580 miles of rural roads having been attended to, and hope we can. I always want to see us double and triple that amount, right? Since I'm from the rural areas. But anyway, thank you for a very interesting meeting today. And I hope everyone has a really nice Christmas and stays healthy and well through Christmas and through Happy New Year together. And I hope we have a more have a much different 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hall. And I just want to say that the success of that change in heart on the Red Mountain probably has something to do with you. So thanks for your help with that one. Commissioner Zink.
Thank you. And I'll add in my welcome to new Commissioner Hickey. You'll be, the old drinking from a fire hose here for a while, but everyone is really helpful. As Kathy mentioned, I zoomed into the Gunnison Valley TPR meeting, and a week later I zoomed into the Southwest Transportation Planning Region. But the best thing in the last month was a trip up to see the construction site of the 550-160 interchange. And a guided tour and a little bit of rock climbing and peering over the edge, and it was just great. And they have made so much progress since I was last up there. It was great to see, and they're I think as much as possible with such a big project, they are on it. They're in line with what their expectations were now before the snow flies. So it's very exciting stuff down here.
Thank you. Commissioner Hickey.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to become part of the Transportation Commission and to be part of this illustrious group. I appreciate your warm welcomes, and I look forward to learning from you and working with you. This is certainly an exciting time to be working on transportation solutions, and it's important to our quality of life and our economic prosperity in Colorado. So I'm thrilled to be joining you. I do look forward to climbing the steep climb to learn even a part of what you all understand. I appreciate the presentations today and that I reviewed getting ready for this meeting. They're just exceptional. And so I look forward to working with you all and CDOT staff going forward. Thank you again.
Thank you. Commissioner Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I too want to welcome Commissioner Hickey, and as you all probably know, our districts are part of Region 2, so I look forward to being able to dialogue on some of the exciting things that are happening in Region 2 and how we can cooperate and make things better. We definitely are in difficult and unique times, but seem to be rising to the occasion. So I wish everyone a wonderful, healthy, safe holiday season.
Thank you. Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Was glad to get some moisture out here in eastern Colorado the last several days. So even though we had some accidents because of it, but we'll take the moisture. Want to welcome the new Commissioner Hickey to the commission. Look forward to working with you. We had our TPR meeting on Monday by Zoom. A lot of updates on it. Nothing real earth-shattering from it. Just one other request of staff, I guess, at this point, and for the commission to consider as we move into next year's budget process. It's kind of come to my attention with our maintenance budgets that over the last years, with the increasing of cost of living increases for salaries, we're actually decreasing the amount of materials we can buy for our maintenance operations. So I'd really like our staff to kind of have an evaluation of our ability to buy the materials we need to do the maintenance on our roads. And how we can try to figure out how to balance and do the maintenance that we're needing with surface treatments and things that has been kind of decreasing, especially in the rural areas on the lower volume roads. So that's just a request for staff to be looking at as we move into next year's budget cycle. Otherwise, everybody have a happy holiday season, and hopefully we get to start seeing each other in person soon in next year sometime.
Thank you, Commissioner Beatty. I would like to add my congratulations to Kay Kelly, who accepted the permanent position of Executive Director of, is it Executive Director or is it Director? Help me, Director Lou, of the Innovative Mobility Office.
I think it's Director, but who can keep track?
Oh, okay, so anyway,
I think she may be a chief.
Chief, yes, she's chief.
Yeah, we're glad you accepted that position, and we look forward to working through some of the interesting ideas that will be put in front of us this year. And I wanted to draw everyone's attention to the 1601 update that's at the end of the package. You know, we started to tackle this back in early fall, and just wanted to let you know that looks like Aaron Wills and his crew are taking public input and stakeholder input and refining some of those stickier points of that. And hopefully we'll have something in front of us that's pretty thorough and has considered all the ramifications of what our change in policy to bring us to the addition of the 1601 eventually. So just wanted to say I appreciate that. I appreciate that update. And I wanted you all to look at that if you hadn't had a chance to look at it. And that's all I have. So thank you very much. And now I'd like to turn it over to the real Executive Director, Shoshana Lou, for your comments. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Chair Stewart. And I'll just add on to the kind of line of welcomes to Commissioner Hickey. We're really excited to have you join our dialogue here, and hopefully in person before too much longer. You know, a lot of work this month on sort of pulling different threads together before the end of a year that has been unusual, but actually quite productive. You know, you heard from the team today about all of the kind of wrap-ups we've done on a number of different threads of the program, and you know, I think it's not too shabby for a year when we were dealing with unprecedented crises of, you know, many different kinds. You know, the progress on the rural paving, both 267 and sort of the emphasis that it leveraged through the base program, I think is pretty extraordinary and is something that we're very proud of as a department. You know, working with Dr. Cog to get that first tranche of projects through the Safer Main Streets program, that has been a very heavy lift. You know, a lot of cooks in that kitchen working together towards a shared goal is not easy, and it's been months and months in the works. So to be able to kind of get that batch out before the holidays is something that a lot of people worked very hard to achieve. I would point in a similar vein to that smaller program, the Revitalizing Main Street program, that we worked together to sort of pull off in the sort of thick end of uncertainty around COVID. We just announced another tranche of grants under that program, and I think we're up to almost 60 communities all over the state that have really leveraged these grants of roughly $50,000 or less. And it's everything from Front Range communities to mountain communities to communities along the Eastern Plains. It's really been a very well integrated program statewide so far. So I think we're excited to see the success of something that was very much outside of the box when we started it. We continue to make progress on the big multi-year projects ahead of the winter season. A lot of work going into trying to sort of stabilize the peak period shoulder lane project going westbound on I-70 before construction becomes more difficult over the winter. A lot of work has gone on over the last several weeks and months on the Central 70 project to get that into kind of a good place before the winter. The projects up and down I-25, really seeing things come together across the portfolio as we head into the months when work tapers a bit. And as Rebecca mentioned earlier in the presentation today, we will soon be in the conversation about sort of tiering the projects that are in our plan that we developed to kind of do that sequence for next year as well. So all in all, a lot to show for 2020, even though it was not the year any of us expected. Karen,
Chair,
I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Chair Stewart, I think you're still on mute.
Oh, it wouldn't let me undo it. Maybe it thinks I've spoken too much already. Sorry. Engineer Harrelson, you're next.
Yes, thank you. I just want to take a couple minutes to brag on our water quality program this month. In the summer of 19, the EPA performed an audit or an inspection on our program, and the result of that, we got an administrative order of consent that had, I think a couple dozen, I guess, findings that we had to cure. So over the past, year and a half or so, Jean Cordova and her water quality team at EPB have been working to address those findings. And just this week, we've pretty much closed the book on it. We've cured all the findings. There are 3 left. There's two minor documents they're major documents, but we have to do some minor edits to some of the language in it, which is essentially done. And we have to continue to report on chronic violators for the next 2 years. But it's quite an accomplishment. It's not just Jean's group and the headquarters EPB, but I think it speaks to our regional staff as well as the contractors out there. For over 20 years, CDOT has been struggling with water quality and stormwater permits, construction permits, and keeping our runoff from our construction projects clean. And we stubbed our toes a few times. But I think this development really shows we've made progress in that area. I talk a lot about cultural change within CDOT, and this is a case where there really has been some cultural change, since I started at CDOT 20 years ago. And, it's kind of like safety. Water quality is never done. You can always do better, but I think we're now at a point, it's kind of like when you're hiking on a mountain and you come to a clearing in the trees and you look back at the trailhead and see it's a couple thousand feet down below you and a couple miles away, and we made some progress, and we really have. So I just wanted to thank Jean and her team, as well as all the regional staff that do the day-to-day stormwater compliance inspection, and also the contractors out there in TV land, because this industry really has changed over the past 20 years, and I think we should be proud. So that's all I have this month.
Thank you for your report, and thanks to Jean. HPTE Director's Report, Nick Farmer.
Thank you, Chair Stewart. Just want to say welcome to Commissioner Hickey. Just a little bit about the HPTE, just for your edification. So you're kind of like, who's this guy? Why is he talking? So HPTE operates as a government-owned business within CDOT to pursue innovative means of more efficiently financing important surface transportation infrastructure projects throughout the state. We were formed in 2009 by the FASTER Act, and we're a division of CDOT, but we're governed by our own 7-member board. 4 are appointed by the governor from the North Front Range MPO, DRCOG, and PPACG areas, and the Mountain Corridor region. And 3 are appointed by the TC chair. Currently, Shannon Gifford, our board chair, Commissioner Stewart, and Don Stanton serve on the board from the TC side. We are also currently an express lane operator in the state with 108 lane miles of express lanes in operation and 115 lane miles of express lanes under construction, which will all open by the end of 2023, most in 2022. We are required by statute to aggressively pursue innovative means of more efficiently financing surface transportation projects through public-private partnerships like US 36 and Central 70, operating concession agreements, user fee-based project financing, which is tolls like what we did on C470 and the Mountain Express Lane, and segment 3 from I-25 segment 3 from 120th to the E470 Northwest Parkway interchange, and annual performance payment agreements. So we've been busy over the last couple months, but since Thanksgiving, we have kicked off the refinancing of the $25 million eastbound Mountain Express Lane Bank of America loan with Wells Fargo, which won our procurement to refinance both that construction loan and the I-25 North Segment 3 loan. Because we want to take advantage of current historically low interest rates, we're aiming to reach financial close right after the January HPT board meeting. And we'll have more on that next month. We're also continuing to work really hard in the Floyd Hill revenue gap study, and we'll have results to present to the boards, the HPT and the DE board in the near future. And we continue to work diligently with the United States Department of Transportation's Build America Bureau on the I-25 North TIFIA loan, making some good progress on that, and hopefully have the finalized letter of interest done, and so we can start hiring advisors, and as can the Build America Bureau, so we can reach financial close by fall of next year. And that's it for my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thanks, Nick. Next is FHWA Director Administrator John Kidder.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to talk this month about Everyday Counts. And Everyday Counts is a federal highway initiative we've had for over 10 years now. And the basic premise of it is that there are a lot of technologies out there, there's a lot of techniques, innovations that are out there, but people don't know about and people aren't implementing for whatever reason. And every day counts. We can be better, we can be safer, we can be more efficient in our use of taxpayers' money. So every day counts in getting these things done. So what can we do to make those things happen? So this year we're getting this, last week we had a kind of a national web meeting and virtual meeting, and we rolled out the 6th round of this, so EDC 6. And just want to talk about the innovations that are out there this year. I guess the other thing I would preface that by saying is that these are optional for state DOTs. States can choose to try all of them or try none of them. CDOT over the years has been very much an innovator and tried most of them, if not all of them. I believe this year CDOT has tentatively decided to try all of these, but we'll see to what degree. But hopefully they're all we try them all and they're all successful. So I'll go through the list real quick. The first one is crowdsourcing for advanced operations. That's essentially using the information we can get from vehicles and people moving around, taking that data, using it to fine tune our operations so we can better save people, again, time and money as far as they travel. Second one is e-ticketing, and that's to kind of look at the construction industry. It has a lot of paper tickets. You go, you get your load of asphalt, you get a paper ticket. You go, you weigh your truck, you get a paper ticket. This would be getting that to an electronic system to take out the paperwork and to make it much more efficient and save time and save costs. Third one is called next generation traffic incident management. And traffic incident management is one I've talked about before. And I'm a great believer in it because it's a way of saving lives, and it's also a way of making our congested roadways work more efficiently. So it's a great innovation. And this is to take that technology those practices that we've typically used on freeways and in congested areas, and applying them to rural areas and on even on local streets to a certain extent, but using those practices and best practices to be better at that. The fourth one is strategic workforce development. And, many of our agencies talk about that, but in this case, it's focused on the construction industry and how we can better plan for the workforce of the future. The construction industry, by and large, is an aging industry, and we need more workers. We need younger workers, and we need to get them excited about construction and transportation. So it's ways to move that along. Fifth one is called targeted overlay solutions, and we spend an awful lot of money in the Transportation Committee on pavement improvements. It's mostly asphalt overlays, some concrete overlays. But this is focusing on those and finding better ways to do those that we can, again, get longer life out of them and do it more cost effectively. Next one is ultra high performance concrete for bridge construction. And it's spending a little bit more on your concrete in your upfront and for your bridge decks, and then reaping a benefit long term in how long it lasts. So it's one there's been a lot of research done on that. And it's one that I think we're kind of there now to maybe start applying these in a large way. So a great technology there. And then the last one is one that we've had to do here in the last 8 months a lot, is virtual public involvement. One where we've got to find ways to involve the public that doesn't involve in-person meetings. And I think by and large, we've got a lot of good case studies there, a lot of good things we can share, and ways to do that even more effectively. So that's the innovations for this year. A lot of good techniques there, and looking forward to making every day count and bringing those forward and making things more efficient. So that's my report for this month, and thanks.
Well, thank you very much. And if anyone has questions along the way, and I want to tell that to Commissioner Hickey as well, please just put it in the chat box. I'll call on you to ask those questions, but appreciate it. Thanks very much, John. And we have the State Transportation Advisory Committee STAC report from Vince Rogalski. And you're still muted, Vince.
Got it. Okay, so one of the first things I want to do is welcome our new commissioner, Commissioner Hickey. And so it's going to be an interesting ride, so just kind of hang on. I don't have an official report because STAC did not meet last week, but one of the things that STAC is going to be working on is developing a work plan for 2021. And one of the things I want to ask the commission to do is if they have anything they'd like the STAC to work on, forward that to Rebecca, and we'll get together and start working on some of the things that we think may be necessary and whatever you would like to have us do. And with that, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much. And that's another record. I don't think we've ever had such a short report from you, Vince, but appreciate you hanging in here with us all day today.
That's okay. I learn a lot by just hanging in and listening. And the thing of it is, when you don't have a meeting, you don't have much of a report.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is to act on the consent agenda. And we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Proposed resolution number 1 is to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 19th, 2020. B is proposed resolution number 2, IGA approval of more than $750,000. And then C is proposed resolution number 3, disposal of State Highway 74 and Bear Creek Road Parcel 10 Rev X. If there's any questions on that, please ask your questions, and then we'll look for a motion.
There's no questions. I move for approval of the consent agenda, the 3 items.
I second that motion.
Who was the second? Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Is there anyone who wants to abstain from voting on this motion? Anyone who is voting in opposition? Seeing none, we'll consider this as unanimous approval of the consent agenda. Thank you. Next is discuss and act on proposed resolution number 4, which is the condemnation authorization. And I'll turn that over to Chief Engineer Harrelson.
Thanks, Commissioner. We are reviewing a condemnation resolution that we discussed in the workshop this morning. The address is Lot 1, Block 1 of the I-25 Gateway Center, filing 4 in the town of Johnstown. It is adjacent to the I-25 Express Lane Segment 6. There are 3 parcels, one about a 1/4 acre parcel that is in fee, that we will own the right of way in fee, and then a 5,800 square foot permanent easement and a 3,500 square foot temporary easement necessary for construction. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
All right. I'd like to ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item.
I don't see anyone.
Thank you, Jennifer. Final, any questions from the commissioners on this resolution? All right, thank you, Mr. Harrelson. Seeing none, motion is in order.
This is Commissioner Brackey. I move to approve.
I'll second Commissioner Vasquez.
Thank you. A motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Is there anyone who wants to abstain from this vote? I'm sorry, is there a question? No? Is there anyone who wishes to abstain from this vote? Anyone who's opposed to this approval? All right. Seeing none, the chair calls this as unanimous approval of resolution number 4, condemnation authorization. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and act on proposed resolution number 5, which is the 6th budget amendment of FY 2021. Jeff?
Good afternoon, commissioners, and welcome, Commissioner Hickey. I'm Jeff Sudmeyer, CDOT Chief Financial Officer. Look forward to working with you, and welcome to the commission. I'm requesting your approval today of the 6th supplement to the fiscal year 21 budget. The 6th supplement includes requests from the Division of Transit and Rail to adjust allocations of Senate Bill 267 funds for 2 previously approved transit projects. There's a memo in your packet detailing those requests. The first request is a request to utilize remaining unallocated year 2 Senate Bill 267 funds to increase by $200,000 the amount allocated to the Crested Butte storage facility. The additional funding is needed to cover higher than anticipated bid amounts. The second request is a request to utilize remaining unallocated Senate Bill 267 funds to increase by $3.3 million the funding allocated to the Firestone Mobility Hub. This project was initially approved at a lower amount based on a very preliminary planning estimate, and after further design and the identification of additional needs related to parking and pedestrian infrastructure and other mobility hub elements, we now have a better but larger estimate of final design and construction costs. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd request that you consider a motion to approve the 6th supplement.
Thank you. Commissioner Zink.
Yeah, this is, you know, adding $200,000 to one project is one thing, but doubling, more than doubling, I mean, this has got to be a whole different project than was originally anticipated, or somebody's really didn't do their job. Go ahead.
Yes, no, very, very good question. And I think David Krutzinger is available if he wants to jump in. I think, as I understand it, at the time of initial programming, there was a very preliminary estimate of what needed to be done at this site to put in this interim mobility hub. After they proceeded with more design, they identified, I think, some substandard parking. I think they identified that there was a lot of additional work that was needed on the parking, as well as wayfinding signage, pedestrian infrastructure, and some shelter costs. So I agree, it is a significant increase. I think you are right that the scope did change. I think the initial amount was for a much smaller project, and after they did additional due diligence and design, realized that there was more project there, including a lot more work on the parking infrastructure. And David can probably give you a much more detailed explanation, but that's my high level understanding.
Commissioner Zink, I think Jeff provided a good amount of detail. I'll just summarize by saying the original cost was just to add bus stops, basically a place for the bus to pull over on the existing on and off ramps of the interstate. And as we looked at it, and as we looked at our other greenhouse goals and goals for full mobility, decision was made to add charging stations, the sidewalks, and bicycle and pedestrian improvements that Jeff mentioned, so that it's more of a fully functioning mobility hub rather than just a bare bones parking lot with some bus stops attached to it. Thank you.
Well, that's a fair explanation, but with that price tag, it's, did we, and I'm sure you did, due diligence to determine that that was the best use of that money at this point in time. But I guess if the project would have kind of collapsed without it, if I understand correctly.
We would have just had a much more bare bones project and not be meeting our other objectives for CDOT. So I as well with Jeff, recommend and ask for your approval of the project.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Hickey.
Thank you. I just had a question about trends during COVID. Have construction costs changed? I expect labor costs are about the same, but if materials have changed, if there's a trend one way or the other.
Very good question, and I might ask if it's with the chair's permission, Steve, Chief Engineer Harrelson, would you like to comment to any cost escalation we've seen on the project delivery side related to COVID?
Sure. We've actually seen a little bit of cost improvements this summer. Early, we saw we were blowing a lot of estimates. Our bids were coming in higher than our estimates. And I think that's because the contracting industry, was pricing in some risk. They weren't sure that that these projects could be delivered under the pandemic. I think as we've gotten into a rhythm with our best practices on the projects and keeping everyone safe, and we had a stellar safety record. I think only 2 projects all summer had to be shut down because of COVID outbreaks, which is, I think we had over 120 projects active. So that's huge. And I think as that risk has been identified to be coming down, those prices have come down a little. And I think the contractors have been a little hungry. And in the last couple of months, our prices are coming in below estimate, whereas last spring they were coming in above estimate generally.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Engineer Harrelson.
Thank you. And before I go to a request for a motion, I'd like to say that I understand the escalation of this mobility hub is beneficial, and in the best case scenario, I'd like to see these mobility hubs be more robust if we can ever afford to do that. I think the value of them is increased with the amount of mobility options that we can provide within those mobility hubs, and not just to pull off and pull on sort of a exit area. So I feel certain that the increase in this cost will be an increased benefit to having the efficiency and the options available at those mobility hubs, and would really love to see that on the other mobility hubs as well. And of course, eventually at the huge mobility hub at Highway 7 and I-25 that I've been pushing for the last 10 years, long before I came onto the commission. So thank you very much for indulging me in those comments. I appreciate it. Any other comments before we ask for a motion? All right, seeing none, a motion is in order.
I move the question, Chair Stewart.
Commissioner Stanton. Is there a second?
Gary Beatty, I second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Is there anyone who wants to abstain from the vote on this motion? Is there anyone in opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll call this as unanimous approval of resolution number 56 budget amendment of FY 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is recognition, and I see on my script that I have an FHWA award or awards. And who takes that? Is that John?
I believe so. And I'm very pleased to be able to have a few minutes here to talk about these awards that were given out here recently. And so in Federal Highway, the highest awards we have are called the Administrators Awards. And those, we just had those presented the first week in December. And so they're typically presented to some individuals or some teams that do exemplary things, whatever I happen to be throughout the agency. And so most of those tend to focus on folks in headquarters who are working on high-level national things, but there are always some awards that go out to the field. And so there's probably 8 or 10 that go out to the field. And so this year, I was extremely pleased that we have two of those team awards were given for activities here in Colorado, and both of them include members of CDOT. So I'm hoping that the CDOT folks have been able to get on the call here. I guess, Jordan Rudel, are you on the call?
Yes, sir.
Great. So let's start by talking about you here. So the first award was given for the C470 litigation team. And so I'm going to read part of the application here to give you the context for the award. So the C470 project was a several $100 million project in the south part of the metro area. And the improvements to the roadway included reconstructing the freeway, added toll lanes, provide congestion relief and decrease delay, and improve corridor reliability. In 2016, a lawsuit was filed by a group of adjoining homeowners arguing that the government had violated NEPA by conducting noise analysis improperly. This resulted in both FHWA and CDOT being named as litigants in a lawsuit related to the noise analysis for completing the EA on this project. So over a multi-year period, several years, the team spent hundreds and hundreds of hours compiling project documentation, speaking with national noise experts, and working closely with the Department of Justice and the Colorado Attorney General's office. Because of the project knowledge and thoroughness of this team, they were able to provide the Department of Justice with important perspectives and critical assistance in defending this lawsuit by assisting on legal briefs, responding to the court, and selecting the course of action to address direction by the court. This case was won at the district level and was later appealed to the 10th Circuit. It was heard there. We're waiting on the announcement or on the decision. As a result of the diligence put forth towards this effort, the team members were all presented the U.S. Attorney's Award of Excellence by the Department of Justice for the work on the Highlands Ranch Neighborhood Coalition versus Cater case. And that's a unique honor. I have never in my career ever heard of getting an award from the Department of Justice for the work done by a team working on a case that they were defending. So Jordan, you were one of the key members of that. I want to express my appreciation from the Federal Highway Administrator and as me as well. Thank you for your work on that case. Again, my one hesitancy here is we're not out of the woods yet. We still got to hear what the judge does on the appeal, but fantastic work on that. We've got an award from the Department of Justice on the quality of work. The other team members I want to mention were Mystery Bridgers from our Western Legal Office of Federal Highway, Melinda Urban and Stephanie Gibson from my office, and then Jordan from CDOT. So Jordan, job very well done. We've got a win there. I think we've got another one coming up here soon, and that's due in large part to your work. So thank you so much, and really appreciate all the work you did to get us out of the woods on that. So thank you so much. So great work there. And not only did we win one award, we won 2 awards. So the second award was, let me find it here, the US 16550 Environmental Impact Statement Mitigation Team. And so those members, I'll read them here to start with. From CDOT, it was Emily Byers from Region 5, Tony Cady from Region 5, Mike McVaugh from Region 5, and David Valentinelli from Region 5. And also Dan Jepson from the Environmental Programs Branch, as well as Greg Wolf from the Environmental Programs Branch. And this award is one that I can't give enough credit to the team and the work they did, not only on the environmental impact statement, on the document itself, but all the work they did leading up to it to get us to the point where we could not only approve the document, but now as we work through the project and crises come up and issues come up, they've established relationships. They've got a situation where we can work through it successfully. So again, I'll read you part of the award here regarding this team. So the US 16550 project will realign a portion of US 550 in order to address safety concerns related to steep and winding grades. As part of the EIS process, 8 archaeological sites were identified in the path of the project. The project team has shown extraordinary support for the large, administratively complex, and labor-intensive archaeological excavation projects that have been completed over the last 2 years. Due to the nature and quantity of significant and sensitive ancestral Pueblo and cultural remains, coupled with the high profile and locally controversial nature of the transportation project, the team was under great pressure to move the archaeological compliance forward in a time-sensitive yet constructive and ethical manner. The project also involved extensive consultation with 4 tribes, especially with regard to human burials found at the sites. In addition, 2 of the tribes have participated in educational outreach regarding the sites. This mitigation and coordination shows the true spirit of environmental mitigation, preservation, and education on respecting the contributions of those that came before us while providing transportation benefits to the greater community. Due to its unique character, this project has received additional attention regionally and statewide. Multiple visitors have expressed interest in the archaeological investigations and visited the project area during the 2019 field season. That type of exposure and sincere interest by recognized officials was only possible because of the support and collaborative spirit supplied by the project team. So I guess I'd like to have each of you turn your video on if you're there, and we'd like to recognize you. So Emily Byers, are you there?
Hi, yes, thank you. Really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for your work. Tony Cady?
Thanks, John.
Great to see you. Mike McVaugh?
Thanks, John. This team did a great job. They worked really hard on this.
I agree. David Valentinelli? Hope you're there, David.
I didn't see him on the call, John.
Okay. Dan Jepson?
Hey, thanks very much, John. This is a really unique project and a unique team. So it's just been wonderful.
There you are. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for your efforts. And Greg Wolf.
Thanks, John. Much appreciated. Like you say, it's been an amazing team, a lot of great people doing a lot of great work on a really incredible project. So thank you.
I'd just like to close by mentioning that the team members from my team, Stephanie Gibson, who's our environmental specialist, Ed Martinez, who's our air engineer, and Randy Jensen, who was the engineering team leader before he retired, and former CDOT employee as well. Many of you know Randy. But again, the work that these folks put together to deliver this project, I think 99 times out of 100 around the country, this job would not have made it. But these folks have made a very challenging, very difficult project happen, and it's progressing very well thanks to their work. So again, my congratulations, the congratulations from the Federal Highway Administrator as well, and thank you all for your great work. So thank you so much.
Bravo, go team.
Congratulations to every one of you. Thanks so much. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Lots of congrats in the chat box as well. What a great team. Thank you. Are there any other matters to come before the commission?
Nope.
All right, then we'll call this as adjourned and we'll immediately go into the Bridge Enterprise Board of Directors meeting where Herman will call roll again.
Director Gifford,
You're on mute. There you go.
I sit here. I guess can you hear me?
Now
Yep.
we can.
There. Thank you.
Director Stanton,
Here.
Director Adams,
Here.
Director Brackey,
Here.
Director Vasquez,
Here.
Director Zink,
Here.
Director Hickey,
Here.
Director Tebow,
Here.
Director Beatty,
Here.
Vice Chair Hall,
Here.
Chair Stewart.
Here. Thank you. Have there been any public comments received prior to this meeting, Jennifer?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. We will act on consent agenda, which is proposed resolution BE1 to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 19th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Gary Beatty, I so move.
Director Beatty,
Second.
and a second by
Don Stanton.
Director Stanton. Any discussion? Anyone wishing to abstain? Anyone in opposition? We'll call this unanimously approved for consent agenda item resolution number BE1. Thank you. Next is discussion and act on proposed resolution BE2, which is Bridge Enterprise budget supplement for FY21. Jeff.
Hello again. I'm requesting your approval of the fourth supplement to the fiscal year 21 Bridge Enterprise budget. The fourth supplement includes one request. That is a request to establish the design phase budget for the preliminary design of a bridge replacement project in Region 4, that's US 40 over Draw in Lincoln County, with $273,900 in faster bridge funds. This is a top tier project in the July 2020 Bridge Enterprise Prioritization Plan. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd request you consider a motion to approve.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a question, and
Commissioner
maybe
Zink?
I missed it. When do you expect to have this project completed? Sounds pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Do we have Patrick Kalinda? Patrick, are you with us? Or Heather perhaps can speak to this as well.
And it looks like this piece of budget is only for the design. And
that's correct. This is just for the preliminary design phase. And actually, I don't have the construction timing phase here. If Heather or Patrick aren't here and don't have that handy, I can follow up with you on that question.
Yeah, this is
Jared.
Jared.
Yeah, Jared's on.
Yeah, this is like Jeff said, is just preliminary design. So up to about FIR level, 30%, and then we'll do another budget supplement for final design in later 2021. So that would set us up for a construction date of probably mid 22.
And you're confident that it isn't going to crumble before then? I mean, advanced deterioration?
Yeah, the pictures are a little scary, but that's why we only are asking for budget for preliminary design, because there's more investigating we want to do before we finalize the design and finalize the design budget.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
This is
Motion
Gary
is in
Beatty.
order. Oh, there you go. Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, I'll move to approve since it's in my district.
I'll second Commissioner Vasquez.
Thank you. Motion in a second. Are there any Further questions, discussion? Is there anyone who wishes to abstain from the vote? Is there anyone who's opposed to this? All right, seeing none, we're going to call this as unanimous approval of proposed resolution BE2. Thank you. Are
Thank you.
other matters to come before the Board of Bridge Enterprise? All right. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to thank all of you on this call, everyone, the commissioners, and everyone who participates and works for CDOT and puts in a lot of time and effort this year in service to Colorado. What a strange year it's been, and thank you all for the time you've put in. Many of you as volunteers, so thank you very much. And from my seat, I hope that you all have a safe and healthy holiday season, and I'm looking forward to 2021 in the hopes that maybe I will see all of you again in person the way we used to, and that we will have the breakfast meetings that we used to have, where we can reconnect with our friends and colleagues and everyone else. So thank you. If there's any other comments before I close out the meeting, this would be the appropriate time.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year. See you
New
all. See you on the
Bye-bye.
flip side. All right. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.